the everyday Hogwarts player. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576 Jealousy. Finch Fletchley, be careful. These beans don't fall to the ground. They will bloom. Bones, don't look at their head. Be careful of getting shot. Michael, don't show your teeth. It will make you very obvious. The bubble pot in front of you on the left is almost turning your head. Professor Sprout reminded again and again. At this time, students were peeling the fat pink pods from the spray bean plants and placing the shiny beans into a wooden bucket. Ryan looked at Hermione in surprise. Why are you thinking about answering questions? You know, in the past 2 years, Hermione has almost always been sticking to him. Answering questions. Response. Ryan had to pull Dr. Hamster Wheel out of thin air. This fellow, who was promoted from a Christmas firecracker gift to pet, has the ability to absorb the complex emotions of wizards after being transformed by Ryan. With it by my side, I won't have to think too much. Ryan just hoped that his clear-minded stance would calm Hermione down again. Dr. Wheel, the hamster who had just been sleeping soundly in his box in Smith's castle, was shaking his little red cape behind him in dissatisfaction, feeling very angry. As for Hermione, who had calmed down, she told the truth about why she knew Fleur. There was no chance that she could see the other Ryan and Fleur. So, your ability after entering the Phoenix incarnation is fictional reasoning? Using the clues around you to come up with a result that seems intuitive, but is not intuitive. Ryan was speechless. Forget about Luna's inexplicable intuition are perfect for catching adultery? Do you want anyone left alive? However, this ability does suit Hermione very well. In the original world line, Hermione was a witch who learned a lot but was not even as good as Ron in applying it. He could only rely on his vast reserve of spells to deal with it. Hermione in the current world line is still similar. She is naturally better at rote memorization. What Hagrid said in the original world line, there is no magic that Hermione can't learn, is actually very appropriate. She is better at broad than deep. This ability allows her to combine her deep knowledge base and make it work the way she wants. Until Thursday afternoon, before potions class, Hermione only forgave Ryan after she woke up from the aura of Dr. Hamster Wheel, willing to talk to him. This also made Ryan feel relieved. But I follow the principle that if I am unlucky, others can't expect to have a good life either. Last night, 100 miles away in the village of Outery St. Catchpole, Xenophilius Lovegood at Luna's home happened to pick up a letter that he had just ignored. From Cutting Edge Pharmaceuticals, requesting the Quibbler, which is now considered a mainstream magazine, to warm up its new article. Mr. Lovegood, who should have sneered at this, chose to accept it under some inexplicable magic. This is also why Snape's face looked so sour in front of them during today's potions class. I have written down the required materials and steps on the blackboard. All you need to do is copy it and practice it. Put away that newspaper ridiculous. Abbott. I hope your shallow mind is not filled with sphagnum splendens. Look at the blackboard. Then copy it 10 times. I just need you to be quiet in this class. Harry, you're different. You can do whatever you want, except mention those 2 words, the Quibbler. You just, forget it, just sit down. Okay, get out of class is over. This is today's potions class. Poor Professor Snape said the above and then disappeared into the classroom. All I can say is that Mr. Lovegood is a qualified journalist. I have linked together the rumors Ryan had spread in the past. This means that Dumbledore and Grindelwald's old love was rekindled, and he asked the potions professor to make a potion that would allow boys to have children and fell in love with Professor Riddle. The reason for Voldemort's birth, etc., have all been confirmed. Snape is not the one who suffers the most right now. Ryan thought so and looked into the distance with a smile, in the direction of the principal's office. In front of the headmaster's office at Hogwarts, an old man with blonde hair and blue eyes, standing tall and not looking old, was pulling the brass knocker in the shape of an eagle's head and a lion's body on the gleaming oak door. I know you're in there. Is that recipe real? Tell me, Dumbledore. After calling for an unknown amount of time, when the old man was about to draw his wand, the door opened automatically. Behind the door, on a tall gilded perch, Fox cordially invited his family everyone to come in. It seems that Fox still recognizes me. The blonde old man's expression softened. HMPH. He doesn't remember you. He treats like this. An exasperated voice sounded. But what is even more surprising is that these words came from Dumbledore. This is the greatest white wizard in the eyes of everyone almost in the British wizarding world, who is kind, steady, wise, an almighty guy called Snape. No, I should call him Severus, or Cupid. A slightly frivolous smile appeared on the face of the blonde old man. He walked slowly over to Dumbledore's desk and sat halfway on the corner of it. Dumbledore, on the other hand, leaned back unconsciously. Didn't deny it. You didn't deny the existence of that recipe, so everything in the Quibbler is true, then. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he was full of murderous intent. It seems that I should have done it myself. Otherwise, the guy called Voldemort would not have escaped. By the way, where's your defense against the dark arts professor? I want to meet him and have a good chat. The blonde old man's tone became softer as he spoke, but Dumbledore's invisible right hand reached into his robes and grasped the wand tightly. Dumbledore is indeed the greatest white wizard. He realized something almost as soon as the blonde old man finished speaking. Then he straightened his back without any hesitation, his face almost touching the blonde old man's lips. He looked straight at the blonde old man and said word by word, "Getler. Only that formula is real." Chapter 577, Pregnant Grindelwald? What happened behind the principal's office is unspeakable. Even Ryan couldn't help but temporarily block out his thoughts that enveloped the entire room. He was grossed out. As long as one of the two people who have been separated for a long time takes the initiative. Then, hickey. All Ryan knew was that Snape accidentally lost a copy of the potion he was ordered to research. Then Grindelwald disappeared. Once the potion is prepared, it must be taken by one of the two wizards who provided the genetic material. If the person taking the medicine is a male wizard, his body will be transformed into the most suitable physique for reproduction, a female body. Had also read the Quibbler because of Ginny at first. He thought it was just a complete lie, but as the Daily Prophet reported on Thursday, it is undoubtedly good news for saving the wizarding world from its declining birth rate, and even if a child suffers from magical abilities degeneration, a new name for squibs. Magic now considers it a curable disease. So like werewolves, the term squibs has gradually faded out of history, due to possible side effects. It can be cured by being infected with lycanthropy and practicing Fenrir's Avid. The formula and detailed production process of this potion will be published in Advanced Pharmacy. There is also Advanced Pharmacy mentioned in the Quibbler, which also released a new issue on Friday morning. It reads, "This potion has been studied and found to be suitable for both men and women. The two wizards who provide genetic material can be of any gender, but the number is limited to 2. Too few or too many will cause the potion to be ineffective. The potion is only effective against the two wizards who provided the genetic material when it was created." The appearance of these two reports made the Slytherin table lively. Everywhere there was a rain of feathers from owls flying around. Draco said that many Slytherin students had contacted their families. Prevent them from practicing trumpet. Goyle's parents have contacted the potion's master to order this boy-to-boy fertility potion. Harry also discovered that Grindelwald had disappeared recently. Normally, if you got up early enough, you would be able to see Grindelwald climbing the stairs and walking towards the principal's office on the 8th floor. Professors McGonagall, Snape, Flitwick, and Sprout would occasionally lose focus during class, as if they were keeping some shocking secret. But Hagrid, as usual, knew nothing. It was as if someone knew that Hagrid had a big mouth and deliberately concealed it from Hagrid. Professor Riddle of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class looked a little annoyed. His usually calm brows were now filled with deep wrinkles. Lupin disappeared all day, and the only way to contact him was through letters. He seemed to be completely unaware of everything happening among the Hogwarts teachers. Never ate the ghost food made by Dumbledore. It still looked like a normal ghost, milky white and translucent. Harry, feeling as if he had been scratched by a cat, even thought of Dobby. Dobby, however, came out quickly when he called his name. But Dobby doesn't know anything. I chose lighter boiled food. Dobby also knew that Dumbledore had recently been on a ship on the Black Lake. All of this seems to point to what was said in the Quibbler. Grindelwald has Dumbledore's child. So the real reason why Voldemort turned bad was really to prevent Dumbledore's harm? Also, was it true that he, Harry Potter, had been targeted by Dumbledore, and the appearance of Professor Riddle made Dumbledore turn his attention to him? Is this why Professor Riddle is so annoying? Are the other professors keeping quiet about this scandal? Is the naive Hagrid isolated to prevent it from affecting the image of Dumbledore in his mind? Was Lupin deliberately sent away during this period of time to prevent him from knowing about Dumbledore's suspicion of Harry? To this, "Don't go to the headmaster's office on Saturday," Draco said immediately. "Just say you're sick," Ron said. "Pretend to break your leg," Neville suggested. "A real broken leg," said Ron. "I can't do this," said Harry. "I have to go. If I don't go, doesn't that mean I doubt him?" And so, Harry spent an anxious day. Downstairs and into the foyer, they saw a group of more than 20 people gathered together. That used to be the staff desk. But everything has changed. The entire long table was removed. The stone platform that had held the staff desk also disappeared. All that was left was an unknown object in the shape of an inverted bowl, engraved with unknown magic runes allowing substances to be quickly purified to extract the spell the caster wants. It's outrageous. This spell can actually be translated into magic words and engraved on an instrument. This greatly reduces the difficulty of wizard alchemy. The Hufflepuff students next to him agreed. Alchemy uses various elemental essences, mineral powders, soil, animal materials, acids and salts, and colorful herbs. I thought there would be unknown medicines lying around, emitting suspicious fumes. The cauldron was boiling with unnamed herbs, and puffs of pungent smoke rose from the stirring pot. Various mysterious and evil symbols were carved on the side of the pot. Even the altar. There were bottles and jars everywhere, filled with animals, plants and animal skeletons. But I didn't expect that this tool could save everything. Aren't you talking about Professor Snape's potions classroom? Alchemy and potions are also related. Another voice sounded from the crowd. Then, a tall figure walked out from the door and said, "Alchemy is not that simple. In fact, potions class can be said to be a kind of alchemy. Their principles and purposes are actually the same. However, the materials and props for potions are cheaper and more common. This is also why alchemy is not taught at Hogwarts. Instead, there are only relevant books for students to study. Because if you are good at potions, learning alchemy is just a matter of analogy." Dumbledore is an example of this, having won the gold medal for pioneering contributions at the Cairo International Alchemy Congress while still a student. Chapter 578 Alchemy Lesson. The person who came was Madame Maxime. She also arrived at the auditorium early and told the students around her about the creator of the Scott transmutation spell. Michael Scott is a wandering wizard who travels around the world in the 12th century to prevent those muggles who persecute magical fields. Because he was always wandering and had no fixed place to live, he invented the Scott transmutation charm, a spell named after his last name, so that he could study alchemy while wandering. The one who translated this spell into magic words was Nostradamus. He was born in the south of France. After graduating from Expelliarmus, he has been engaged in potion research. He is also a famous pharmacist in the Muggle world. He cured this disease. He dabbled in alchemy. When the Black Death was spreading, he traveled all over France and Italy, living in a nomadic place, and began to study the disease. But due to his level of magic, he was unable to use the Scott transmutation spell. Finally, he chose to take a different approach and translated it into magic words and engraved them on the large iron pot he used for cooking many victims of the Black Death. What you are going to learn today is how to purify and change the properties of objects through this prop on the stage and how to translate some simple spells into magic words. The time soon came to 10 o'clock. All the long tables disappeared. Instead, there were copper pots with Scott's transmutation spell attached to them. Students from Expelliarmus, Castellbishire, and Durmstrang also appeared in the hall. Innocence, he was no longer so angry. Krum breathed a sigh of relief at this. Today, Madame Maxime, the professor of alchemy, divided all the students into 3 teams according to their grade, grades 1 to 3, grades 4 to 5, and grades 6 to 7, and taught them first. She taught students from 1 grade to 3 how to operate it. Around the 1st century AD, alchemists in Alexandria had basically established the basic steps of alchemical practice: raw materials, blackening, dead matter, transformation, product. This is the prototype of the current alchemical idea of understanding, decomposition, and reconstruction. Difficult. Harry almost flipped through the operating manual in a diagram in his hand, which detailed the key points in the reconstruction of matter, namely that XX matter cannot be transformed into XX matter through suggestion, and transformed a silk black cloth that was distributed to him into a rubber-like substance. Completed what needed to be done for today's alchemy course. After Harry finished, he was followed by Hermione, Luna, and some Expelliarmus students. Next are Neville and Draco, not counting Ryan. He was lazy and playing with a cat. Fifth graders Fred and George joined the younger students, and under their leadership, almost all senior students tried it once. Their rate of success is generally faster than that of lower grade students. However, the fastest of them could only barely catch up with Neville's success, not counting Penelope and Kate. Harry had noticed that the rubber-like substance that was successfully refined would be divided according to school. Hogwarts is even more detailed, and is divided again by college. It was probably about 8 minutes later. Then Madame Maxime went over to the 4th and 5th graders. They learned how to use their wands as chisels to carve magic runes. They all held their wands in the same way as they held a pen, and drew strange magic runes on the wood. The younger students who had completed their tasks also joined in. However, Harry only glanced at it and then looked away. Because these tests are about the level of magic control, first they do alchemy and manufacture products on a daily basis, then came Hermione and Luna, then there are the students of Books Buttons. They already study alchemy. Then there's Neville, but this time Ron was faster than Draco. After Draco finished, almost half of the 4th and 5th year students had also finished some information in advance. As soon as Madame Maxime arrived, she was surrounded by these eager students. Harry and other students who had finished their projects also came over. The spell to be translated today is the shock absorption spell. Madame Maxime walked around in front of these senior students, telling them in simple terms that they should first summarize the effects of the spell, find magic runes with similar magic power, then combine the found magic runes, finally debug. In addition to being divided into 3 teams per year, Hogwarts is also divided by house, refined by other grades. Most of these products have restored the silk texture at this time. Madame Maxime stood up and said, "These silks that have been successfully engraved with the shock-absorbing spell will be used as the raw materials for the robes worn by the warriors in the individual competition, and the team competition actually starts now. The amount of silk you successfully refined will be divided by the number of people in each school and recorded as usual points. Hogwarts students may have noticed that you are also divided into houses. The college with the largest number of successes will receive extra points, of course. This is your school's house score." Madame Maxime paused and looked at the parchment in her hand. After clapping their hands, 4 figures came in from the back door of the auditorium. They were the deans of the 4 colleges. Then, the parchment came into Professor Flitwick's hands. 62. Professor Flitwick paused, and seemed about to jump for joy. "Finally, I am honored. 50 points for Ravenclaw." There was thunderous applause from the Ravenclaw students in the audience. Chapter 579 Unexpected. Looking at these students who are extremely excited about learning alchemy, Ryan just shook his head at this. What we learned today, translating spells into runes, and using a wand instead of a chisel to carve runes. The former is knowledge that already exists in Hogwarts. The latter is just a little trick that can be mastered in one go. Teach you what I have learned. The method of controlling the Scottish pot, which seems to have the highest gold content, is nothing but a castle in the air. Casually, Furin was the most exaggerated and was almost the last batch to be completed, but this led to this team competition. Boxburton students who were good at alchemy barely managed to get second place. Hogwarts first, Castrobus was third, and Durmstrang was fourth. However, the reason why Hogwarts could achieve this result was because they did not have an alchemy class. Very curious about this. Under the leadership of Fred and George, most of the senior students joined in while the younger students were learning. As a result, the per capita value of Hogwarts' final product far exceeds that of the other 3 schools. This also made almost all the students hold their breath. Students from leading schools are afraid of being overtaken. They think their luck is the main reason. The students from the lagging schools wanted to catch up and make up for their previous humiliation time, and even the other 3 colleges had their lunch in the auditorium and discussed the morning lessons. Bikram was not one of the majority of students. As the Ravenclaw students applauded for the increase in their house points, he quietly walked out of the hall, crossed the entrance hall and the lawn, and returned to the ship. Burst out. The deans of the 4 colleges in the auditorium disappeared again. The figure that appeared on the stage was replaced by an unexpected figure. He is not Grindelwald, the cool blonde old guy in the eyes of other school students. Why is it him? Hiss. Dumbledore. Then the greatest white wizard of the 19th century, Albus Dumbledore. Quiet. There was a strange magic in Dumbledore's voice that made people surrender. As soon as his voice sounded, the noisy auditorium suddenly returned to silence. Fred, who was talking about how the blonde old man was persecuted by Dumbledore and lost his right to give lectures, stopped moving like a mosquito in amber. Combined with the distorted facial features and the big mouth, It looks extremely funny. It took almost 5 seconds for Fred to adjust his facial features and turn his head towards Dumbledore. At this time, Dumbledore also talked about the reason why Grindelwald didn't come. Professor Gervin is not used to the climate in England and feels unwell. Harry and others know Grindelwald's identity and have watched the Quibbler and looked at Dumbledore strangely, so he temporarily returns to Durmstrang Academy of Magic. Headmaster Karkaroff was also unable to serve as Professor of War Magic due to his domestic affairs. It is an honor to be able to stand in this place and pick up the professor's work again. War Magic, literally speaking, means magic used in war. One to many. Possess direct and unmatched destructive power. It can capture cities, cut through mountains and split rocks. So which is better, modern magic or war magic? Hufflepuff's Zacharias asked loudly, spread from Hufflepuff. However, Dumbledore answered Zacharias' question, please put it this way. A wizard who only knows war magic. No matter how powerful his magical attainments are. Appearing in the side of a wizard who specializes in modern magic, within the reach of his magic. That means failure. Even just a stunner, a spell that repels spells, is all that's needed. Unparalleled magical power to take the wizard's life and destroy everything around him. However, this is not necessarily the case. It's not that I'm biased. Modern magic has evolved to a near-perfect level over the past few hundred years. The most powerful war magic is only as powerful as the reappearance of natural disasters, such as tornadoes and tsunamis. When faced with a natural disaster caused by magic, wizards can even use magical interference to influence or even seize the power of the natural disaster, so as to manipulate it to attack its maker. Excess destructive power is a double-edged sword. Therefore, war magic also began to evolve into group magic, that is, multiple wizards work together to cast a spell. This is different from the concept of group magic in modern magic. It is not that all wizards recite the same spell and coordinate with each other. Instead, multiple wizards recite a section of it to create a huge magical phenomenon. What we are going to learn today is group magic and war magic. However, this is different from our morning class. There is no concept of ordinary points. Just pure courses. Your job is to successfully perform lengthy war magic together in a group match. And give blessings to the warriors in the individual competition. I'll add that for group matches, we'll grade the completion of the spells. No extra points. I want to get it back. This isn't fair. Why don't we get any points for the projects that we're good at school? Blessing? Does the magic we learn work directly on the warriors? Langler Wong, the word in the middle cannot be typed, so I use Lee instead. Classmate Yuchi Jinain for their monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580, Hogwarts Falls Behind. Dumbledore's appearance attracted everyone's attention. The students below almost ignored the changes in the auditorium's layout. So does Harry. After Dumbledore finished speaking, everyone around him started discussing. I realized that the long tables were back in the auditorium very long, so long that there will be no time to change the layout, for the dinner at 6 o'clock. On the other side, a moment later, the Durmstrang students came to their senses. They all realized that even without the usual points, they were also introduced to war magic, a dangerous, outdated system of magic banned by multiple ministries, before students from the other 3 schools. Then, they all fell silent, trying hard to hide their joy. Although the so-called evolved version of magic war, group magic was not involved a lot, but they have all mastered some war magic. Ryan on the side raised his eyebrows. What Dumbledore talked about was clearly about ancient magic. In order to describe it accurately, wizards now call it war magic. Magic phenomenon will become extremely stable, without reducing its power. Voldemort and the Death Eaters could not be dealt with by normal methods of dealing with war magic. Ryan was actually quite surprised by this. Ryan saw it. Originally, Grindelwald wanted to teach these students traditional war magic. Pregnancy caused everything to change back to the competition. If one has mastered war magic, one will have obstacles in understanding this so-called group magic and find it difficult to get started. These Durmstrang students were too happy too early. I just heard say that these magics are meant to act everyone directly on the warriors themselves. The answer is you all guessed it correctly before the group competition, which is the start time of the first event corresponding to War Magic. In October, you will study these 3 magic wars every Saturday at 10 p.m. You don't have to worry about the students outside Durmstrang. These 3 war magics are unpopular magics that they have not learned or even heard of. Their effects are all directly on the human body, enhancing the body's ability to resist blows, strength, and speed. Okay, I've said too much just now, so let's get straight to the point. Receive 3 pieces of parchment. Written above are the 3 magic spells and pronunciation notes that you are going to learn during this period. All you need to do is to choose the 4 syllables that you think are most suitable for you. After reciting the spell once according to your own feelings, then all the prefects need to do is to keep statistics on these. Finally, check to see if all the students' 4 syllables selected by all are collected to see if there are any omissions. If so, a test is needed, that is, recording the time and number of times each student uses his or her own magic power when chanting the syllables of his or her choice. The last thing you need to do is to place the students with later data at the blank or missing syllables. Ask them to choose 4 syllables that they think are appropriate again. If there are any omissions to conquer, today is the first piece of parchment. You can the remaining 2 by next Saturday. Dumbledore waved his wand, and thousands of paper cranes flew out from his wide cuffs and landed in front of each student, turned into 3 pieces of parchment. Everyone couldn't suppress their curiosity and looked at the parchment in their hands. The same goes for Harry. He was surprised to find that each of these spells was almost a foot long. It's about the same length as usual homework. And it was nothing like the essays that Ron usually wrote, complete with large fonts and large spacing just to be lazy. Each word is very small, with almost no spacing except for the marked syllables. It's so crowded that it makes people want to give up. At first glance, Harry even suspected that war magic was expelled from the mainstream magic in the wizarding world because the spells were too long. It has become something that only one magic school teaches. It is still the same elective course as Care of Magical Biology. When Ron saw the densely packed spells in his hand, he dropped his face and said, "Merlin's beard. Do we really need to recite them all? I dare say that by the time I finished reading it, 1 class period would have passed." I was wondering why the group potion meeting was held at 7 p.m. The 3 hours from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. were all spent chanting spells for us. In response, Anthony shook his head and said, "This is not the hardest part. We can easily memorize normal spells according to their meanings. However, these spells are all composed of English letters. Some words that are prone to ambiguity are also marked with phonetic symbols. But these words are definitely not English. They are probably an unknown magical text transcribed using the pronunciation of English letters." In response, Harry comforted him, "Okay, let's read it first. The magic words are magical. I think after we read it once, we will find out which 4 syllables are most suitable for us. Have already arranged the 4 syllables that each student is responsible for. Everyone at Hogwarts has not yet finished their work for the day. A large number of people can sometimes be a burden, just like today. Until 6 o'clock, it's time for dinner still. Nearly 1/3 of the students are still looking for the right 4 syllables for themselves under the guidance of their class leaders. It's not that they didn't find it in the last 3 hours. But everyone at Hogwarts seems a little different. Most of the students chose 4 syllables that were repeated together. This also means that we need to select again. Find the students who are slow to respond to the magic power of spells. Then ask these students to make their choice again in the blank space. Chapter 581, Reprocessing of Potions Materials. The aroma of grilled meat, various fried foods, fresh soups, and a slight fat wafted through the auditorium. The crisp sound of knives and forks colliding with plates was also heard. But in such an atmosphere, there was a group of students who were so engrossed in reading the patch that they forgot to eat. What is even more surprising is that there is Ron among them, who regards eating as the most important thing. Hermione on the side couldn't help but marvel at this. She turned to look at Ryan, her eyes full of curiosity. But her question wasn't how Ron could overcome his desire for delicious food. But, our Hogwarts isn't that bad. And we have more students than the other 3 schools combined that are here right now. Logically speaking, the content of this class should be in favor of those with more people, right? Why is that? Is it for this reason that Dumbledore deliberately did not count the usual points? Ryan was chewing a piece of beef stew in his mouth, but he said clearly, "You may not have noticed that Hogwarts is the only school among the 4 schools that has a house division. The little wizards are divided according to their personalities and their own ideas. And each college emphasizes the characteristics of the students who are assigned to it. A large number of wizards with similar personalities and ambitions were gathered together to take classes together. It is estimated that the students of Hogwarts will perform even worse in today's class. As for whether Dumbledore did it on purpose, I don't think he has the energy to focus on the outcome of the regional championship. Hermione exclaimed after hearing Ryan's answer. The knife and fork in his hand fell to the ground. She reached forward and asked, Does this mean that our school is worse? Ryan shook his head. That won't happen. House traits: Slytherin for ambition, Gryffindor for courage, Ravenclaw for intelligence, Hufflepuff for loyalty. They are undoubtedly good things. Young wizards can also use this to quickly calm their minds that seem chaotic due to their young age. Being with similar people makes them more organized. The progress of young wizards' magic, able to better control his almost omnipotent magic power. Find your own comfortable way to manipulate magic. It can be said that the Hogwarts system is perfect. It's just that Dumbledore's execution was a bit inadequate. My own fault. Hermione agreed. On the other side, Harry finally persuaded Ron to eat a few pieces of pie. However, Ron didn't have time to take a few bites. Professor Castor Palach of Casterbush, who looked like the dark-skinned Dumbledore, appeared in front of. This was also the first time Harry saw this man up close. Harry had never paid much attention to him before this. With Grindelwald, Dumbledore and Professor Riddle around, how could they pay attention to a professor from everyone abroad? Even if he was a tree shepherd, Hagrid gave those seeds to Harry and the others. Looking at this man, Harry felt a strange sense of déjà vu. His movements were obviously very fast and he looked very energetic, not like an old man. But Harry inexplicably felt that he was like a slowly walking tree. It is filled with an aura that seems to be one with nature. And his eyes are as bright as a newborn baby, striving for vigorous vitality. You guessed it right. This Professor Palach is indeed only a 3-year-old man in terms of the length of his life. Opposite him, next to her, was Hermione. Is it the tree shepherd? Harry suddenly remembered what Hagrid said. The original purpose of the tree shepherd system was to share and obtain the long life like trees. You can say that. I knew that Ryan didn't want to be disturbed again. All he needed to do was be quiet and roll away mellowly. My food didn't disappear. Ron, who had been eating and drinking lavishly and stuffing food into his arms because of Professor Palach's appearance, widened his eyes. It's clearly 7 o'clock now. When a new class starts, the layout of the auditorium should change. The food on the table should also disappear, yet nothing has changed. Just like Professor Palach, who always had a faint smile on his face in front of them. I'm Castor Palach. Students who haven't finished their meals can continue eating. He won it, Ron. It's already late today. In order not to delay your weekend, I decided to get straight to the point. To put it simply, a group potion is a potion that requires multiple wizards to work together to make exception. However, the potion ingredients needed for group potions require an extra step. That is the result of multiple wizards reprocessing it in advance, using magic on the potion ingredients that will not affect the potion and the potion ingredients. And in order to prevent the potion materials from being affected by the mixed magic of multiple wizards, the magic you use when processing must also be unified lighting spells. Later, we will give the 4 grasses to the students on the left and in the front row of the 4 schools respectively. 4 black cloth bags with the names of the schools written on them were handed to the students on the rightmost and last rows of the 4 colleges. All you need to do is shine the illumination spell on the grass for at least 3 seconds. Then pass it around the school, from left to right, to put it in the black cloth bag and hand it in. Okay, let's start. Afterwards, the school heard the sound of fluorescent flashing. N times Ron ate his food in peace from the Slytherin table to the Ravenclaw table. There is a Hufflepuff in between. Chapter 582 due date. Just half an hour had passed. After the other 3 schools handed in black cloth bags containing processed liquid grass. At the Gryffindor table, Dean, who was sitting in the last row, had just finished the final processing and put it into the cloth bag. Then Professor Palach announced the end of the course, and informed that the next group potions class will be scheduled from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock next Saturday. The war magic class was also delayed to 4 o'clock. As soon as Professor Palach finished speaking, Krum disappeared in a hurry. Ron didn't have time to react. In response, Harry said, "Ron, why don't you just write and explain yourself? It's always like this. I don't know how long Krum will hide from you." "No, I don't believe it." Ron took a bite of the chicken leg outrageously. "Stop it. I think you're just causing trouble for Harry. Harry is so good at Quidditch that he needs a world-class Quidditch star as a sparring partner. If only it had been explained earlier, Harry could have played some difficult Quidditch earlier to relax. Ginny walked over slowly and glared at Ron. She didn't expect to hear such stupid words from Ron just after she separated from Luna. What's more, she watched her brother following a man like a pervert all day long. Does she still want to save face? And on the other side, Ryan's there. I feel like we are more like workers than students. I still don't understand how to make group potions, Hermione said indignantly, glancing at Ryan cautiously out of the corner of her eye. In her eyes, there is someone who can answer this question. However, Ryan did not respond. He just looked at her with his chin in his hand and a smile on his face. Until he saw her ears turn red and she shyly punched his chest with her little fists. Ryan then opened his mouth. Do you think these schools really teach serious knowledge, be passed on to others? In the wizarding world, knowledge equals power. You are concerned about how to make it later. He will tell it in the end. You know now how boring it is. Seeing that Hermione wanted to say something, he waved his hand and a gray light flashed by. When the two appeared again, they were already at the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle in attention and created another figure. Went to Chumbucket Restaurant. He hadn't had a Krabby Patty in almost followed a week. On the other side, Harry also said goodbye to Ginny, Ron and others. We headed to the principal's office, the place where there was a lone stone monster in the corridor on the 8th floor. Sourpup, Harry said, spiraled around and around, rising higher and higher until he arrived at the door of Dumbledore's office with a brass knocker. Harry knocked on the door. Come in. It was Dumbledore's voice. The door then opened automatically. Good evening, sir, Harry said as he walked into the headmaster's office. Purchase, but I don't know where it has gone now. This room, like their dormitory, was domed. There were also funny little noises and white smoke. Harry almost thought that Dumbledore was smoking a wooden pipe, but when he looked in the direction of the sound, he found that the smoke and the sound were coming from strange silver objects whose functions were unknown. They are all placed one by one on the slender table legs. The walls were covered with portraits of former headmasters and principals, all of whom were snoring softly in their frames. There was a nasty old man with a goatee. He knew that was Sirius' great-grandfather. He had seen it in a frame on the wall of number 12, Grimwald Place. Harry quickly looked away. He didn't want to be ridiculed by this weird old man again. He looked towards the center of the room. There was a huge table with claw-shaped legs. Dumbledore sat in a high-backed chair behind the desk. There was a shelf with a tattered, crumpled wizard's head on it, the sorting hat. I kind of wanted to wear it again. However, at this time, Dumbledore said, well, my little room is not bad, is it? Harry, this is your first time in my office. Maybe you are wondering why I should teach you individually. And why is the other mysterious professor absent? Where did he go? I will tell you all about it later. I say, is that Grindelwald? And the Quiddler on it? I'm sorry. I mean, does this have anything to do with him not coming? Harry was very upset. He just slipped up. It was Ron who led him astray. However, Dumbledore just smiled and said, Xenophilius has a keen intuition. Except for Tom and your content, there is no logical problem in it. It barely touches reality. I wonder why you are so nervous. Are you afraid that I will take action? Harry, I'm just an old man. Not that much energy. My morals don't allow me to do that. The relationship between professors and students is inherently unequal. In such a relationship, professors should not create any additional weights with students to further tilt the scales. Is Grindelwald pregnant? Dumbledore's tolerance gave Harry the reckless courage he inherited from James Potter. A little budding. You're blushing, Harry exclaimed. Congratulate me. Dumbledore blinked, although I am not prepared to reconcile with Grindelwald. But he did take the so-called boy fertility potion. I think the name is just a gimmick. It should be called the transgender fertility potion. After all, in addition to men and men, men and women can also give birth to offspring through it. The only downside is that this potion can only be taken once. So, he won't come? I mean, Mr. Grindelwald, when can he? Harry didn't know whether to continue. He felt that this was too close to Dumbledore's privacy. You want to know when the baby is going to be born? Like a normal child, about 10 months old, said Dumbledore. But didn't Voldemort resurrect this semester? Harry calculated the time. Voldemort will be resurrected around the end of this semester. That means it will end in June next year. Almost July. It will be almost October by then, Dumbledore replied. Chapter 583, Horcrux is no longer important. Harry felt like he had opened Pandora's box. This made him extremely embarrassed. He felt that he might as well be actually being targeted by Dumbledore instead of discussing the due date of the child with Dumbledore. And what to name the child. Harry noticed this as well. That was that Dumbledore himself wasn't as sharp as usual. The joy of being a father made Dumbledore almost ignore everything. Lost that X-ray inside embarrassment now. He kept talking endlessly about the topic of children. However, Dumbledore did not seem to mention Grindelwald's name at all afterwards. From this it can be seen that the rekindled love between Dumbledore and Grindelwald and the Quibbler is just a rumor. They may have caught fire, but then quickly went out for unknown reasons. Harry wondered if Grindelwald hadn't had Dumbledore's child. Dumbledore probably wouldn't even mention Grindelwald's name. Just as Dumbledore was about to talk about who would be the child's godfather after he was born, Harry quickly said, "Dumbledore, what is the content of tonight's class?" "Courses." Dumbledore was stunned for a moment, then his eyes regained clarity. Subconsciously, I looked at the portraits of the principals on the wall. Then he looked away. But Harry also discovered that a fat wizard with a red nose was obviously taking a nap. Because compared to when Harry came in just now, he was wearing a hearing aid on his ear that came from nowhere. I think I should get to the point. You must be wondering, how could I tell you about my child and mention the abnormal relationship between me and that person? Please forgive me, this is an obvious mistake made by a new and elderly father. Dumbledore rubbed his eyes. This is my fault. I was the first to bring it up at an inappropriate time. But Harry replied quickly, obviously, this is a conversation I'm leading. I'm not bragging, but it comes very easy for me to steer a conversation. It's just that I don't want to use it. Dumbledore paused. Okay. Time is so over. Let's not argue about who is right or wrong. Just think of it as half and half. Harry nodded. Dumbledore stood up and said, I suppose you and your friends are aware of the Horcruxes. After all, you even know that only Professor Riddle can truly kill Voldemort. And I also noticed the questions you asked in the Ancient Magical Runes class. You should have noticed that there are probably 7 Horcruxes. Draco guessed that Voldemort was probably defeated by me, who was born not long ago, before he could create the expected 7. This. Harry asked. He's a really sharp kid. Even Tom, that's Professor Riddle, as I call him now, thought it was possible. A lot happened this summer. The discovery of Caradoc's body also confirmed this point. Voldemort killed Caradoc, who also had Gaunt blood, and transformed Slytherin's most valued locket into a Horcrux. We all knew it, of course. It had been destroyed at the Black House the summer after your freshman year. Then there's the diary. Your friend's father, Lucius Malfoy, gave it to me. It has now become your Professor Riddle. Hufflepuff Cup. Thanks to your reminder, Harry, this Horcrux was also destroyed by Tom hastily. Ravenclaw's diadem has been made into a Horcrux. Helen, well, Lady Grey told me. The diadem I hold in my hand was remade for her by Ravenclaw himself. The whereabouts of the original one she had revealed to the young Voldemort. Presumably, it has already become a Horcrux. Is that so? Dumbledore said calmly, Horcruxes are not important in defeating Voldemort. I only mention them because they are important to you or Tom. Dumbledore suddenly turned his eyes and looked behind him. Harry, you are Voldemort's last Horcrux. I am sure of this. I have also determined that Voldemort himself did not know this secret. Otherwise, he would not have expressed hostility towards you many times in the first grade and even wanted to kill you. Instead, he will show another face of himself when he was still young. He will choose to ignore you on the pretext of avoiding me. He will focus all his attention on the Philosopher's Stone. The moment I heard Dumbledore's confession, Harry became nervous. He tried his best to control his new instinctive ability, lying, to cover up his possible flaws. He tried his best to act as if he heard it for the first time. So, what do you mean? You let Professor Riddle be independent just for me? Who else knows? You have guessed it. Dumbledore took off his glasses and wiped them with a corner of his robes. Then he put it on again and said, Sirius, Severus Tom, in short, everyone in the Order of the Phoenix knows. But there is a secret that only I, Tom, know. Today there will be one more you. That is, you, Tom and Voldemort, as living Horcruxes, are each other's Horcruxes, remaining immortal. Voldemort. Tom can kill by relying on his identity as the main soul. But you are different, you are Tom's Horcrux. After my death, in the long years ahead, You will serve as a protective lock to prevent Tom from deteriorating, but you have to note that the 3 Horcruxes that Voldemort may have left behind are also yours and Tom's Horcruxes. If Tom really turned bad, he might kill you without a second thought, so what you have to do is find all the Horcruxes left behind after Voldemort dies. If I am still alive, then I will accompany you and destroy all Horcruxes except yours in front of Tom. This way, even if Tom turns bad, he won't want to kill you. As long as you are alive, sooner or later there will be a day when order will be restored. But maybe I'm just overthinking it. Tom can now truly be considered a good wizard worthy of praise, even if he has been corrupted by the passage of time. You must have been very powerful by then. Tom, considering your strength, will not dare to do anything beyond your authority. Harry was silent for a long time, then looked up and said, "What about me? Will I not degenerate?" Dumbledore chuckled, "No, you are the only one who won't." Chapter 584 The Selfish God of Death? Harry opened his mouth to speak, but closed it again. Behind Harry, Fawkes the Phoenix gave a soft, melodious hum. "It's back." Harry suddenly noticed that Dumbledore's bright blue eyes were a little moist. He was greatly embarrassed and looked down at his knees, but he felt it was too obvious, so he quickly turned his head to look at Fawkes on the gilded branch behind him. "I haven't seen you yet. Look, here's my wand, made of your tail feathers." However, Harry forgot to use his ability to lie to cover up the unnaturalness in his words. "Well, Fawkes doesn't like to hear about tail feathers," Dumbledore said calmly. Hearing this, Harry looked at the beautiful bird carefully. Fawkes's narrow and long phoenix eyes indeed revealed an unhappy expression. Harry had a question in his mind: name of the Order of the Phoenix. A question mark popped up in Harry's head. Doesn't it mean that the Order of the Phoenix can be reborn from the ashes like a phoenix in the face of evil and defeat all dark forces? The phoenix came from Fawkes, by selling its tail feathers. That's right, Harry. What are your choices? For longevity? If you want to die naturally, I will endeavor to find a way to sever the link between you and Riddle after Voldemort's death. As for Tom, I will leave this responsibility to my child. It's really strange to say, but over the years I have always had an inexplicable feeling that Dumbledore's bloodline should not be passed on. It is a forbidden bloodline. But it wasn't until he got pregnant that I realized that nothing was off limits. Existence is reasonable. I don't know now. In my understanding, they are humans or wizards. No one wants to die. Those words you said to me in front of the mirror of Erisden in the last room of the 4th floor corridor when I was in 1st grade. Actually, I don't agree with any of them. I think being alive is the most important thing. If you can live long without hurting others, why not? However, the afterlife does seem to exist. At least that's what a ghost said. Death may be a permanent reunion. Well, I'll leave this decision to myself 100 years from now. Let me make the choice at that time," Harry said after smiling. However, what neither he nor Dumbledore noticed was that the old wand in Dumbledore's arms was now emitting a faint glow that was invisible to ordinary people, and a magnificent, great will was descending. After hearing what Harry said, it disappeared as quietly as it came. Smith Castle, Ryan, who was lying on him, opened his eyes. "Master, are you okay?" The house elf Jack appeared quickly and crawled on the ground, for he sensed a palpable fury in his master. The usual unfathomable smile was gone, and the clear silver eyes no longer had the usual indifference, as majestic and unmoving as a mountain. Quickly disappeared from the spot sleeping when he closed his eyes just now. Instead, he was watching everything that was happening in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts, but facing the will of the God of Death and Harry Potter's outrageous words, he did not react at all. The anger in Ryan that came from previous Smiths was ignited. Why would they be targeted by the God of Death and forced to ascend to the afterlife after they become powerful? So much so that they have been following the secret path. But when it comes to his direct descendants, he doesn't mind being offended at all. As a god, a great wizard who controls the afterlife, he is so selfish. But Ryan himself was just a little unhappy. He knew Harry was just a different person. Under Ryan's design, Harry lost a chance to see for himself how Voldemort ended Peveril's blood-killing curse. According to the prediction of the God of Death, because he cannot see Ryan in his current state, in his eyes, the only one who can kill Voldemort is Riddle. That is Voldemort himself. Therefore, Harry lost his identity as the savior in the prophecy. In the eyes of the God of Death, Harry is now just his descendant who has lost his inheritance rights, so he will naturally treat him with leniency. Before Ryan plotted against Harry, in 1st grade, Harry was considered the savior and heir to the God of Death. He just said that he wanted to resurrect his family. Then came the arrival of the will of the god of death and his admonition of accountability. And before the prophesied savior comes, except for the direct descendants of the god of death, the other two lines, Longbottom and Smith, both come from the eldest son, Antioch Peveril, so they are considered one line, still have inheritance rights from their ancestors. When they become as powerful as their ancestors, which is the dividing point between demigod wizards and god wizards, a new round of tests for the throne of God will begin due to the attraction of blood. Ignatius Peveril, who believed that he was right and could bring well-being to all living beings, would naturally not allow Longbottom, Smith and Gaunt to have the opportunity to grow to this point. Often, once one reaches the level of a demigod wizard, they are summoned into the afterlife. But in Ryan's opinion, this also proves that the Grim Reaper is indeed losing his humanity. Because if he still has humanity, or the human side prevails, the other two lineages have reached the boundary between gods and non-gods. As an examiner, the current god of death can set questions according to his own will. Or in other words, it directly rejects the examination for godhood. But it is precisely the divine side that prevails had no choice but to choose the fairness and justice of the assessment for the throne of God. The prophecy of the Savior may be the last backdoor he gives to his descendants after all. According to this prophecy, the other two lineages were actually eliminated from the beginning. Longbottom was not the first person Voldemort wanted to mark. Smith believed that the fortifications were too strong and Voldemort could not break in, let alone mark it in Gaunt. Voldemort himself is the only direct descendant of Gaunt. Only the Potter family could not break in even with his Fidelius charm, but they just happened to choose his men as guarantors. So, Harry being marked was actually a foregone conclusion. Unless it happened that the Longbottoms brought Neville to visit Harry's house at that time. When Voldemort killed someone at last, the curse was directed at Neville. Chapter 585, Countercurrent Time. In the silent study, Ryan suddenly stood up and said, "Okay, it's time. The noodles are coming soon." A clock-like object drawn with black and green silk threads appeared in his hand. After pressing the switch, a belt made of black iron and bronze appeared around his waist. At the same time, a huge illusory clock appeared behind him. Time, Masked Rider Cronus. From Ryan's perspective, the world was twisted 360 degrees as if it were turned upside down. The ticking of the clock in his ears stopped abruptly. The illusory clock also quietly disappeared. The armor made of unknown metal that looks like black iron and bronze wrapped Ryan's body of lightness, enveloped his whole body. This made he felt like he was flying very fast, and flying backwards. Various vague clouds and shapes passed before his eyes. It felt like something was knocking in my ears. It was as if there was a great being warning against forbidden behavior. Then, all the sounds around him seemed to disappear, and his superhuman senses could not detect them. Office of Hogwarts, the will of death was about to disappear from the Elder Wand. Pause. Time stopped moving. Removal. Everything around me began to fly by. It's like being on a train and watching the scenery disappear outside the window. Ryan stretched out his hand, and when his fingers bent to make a handshake gesture, the principal's office appeared in front of him, and a magic wand appeared in his hand, instrument that has been passed down through the history of killing. At this moment, it was dodging the faint light that non-gods could not see. The truth is so amazing that even stopping time cannot stop it from shining. Quiet do. You know, it is very difficult to control the strength to step on an ant without crushing it. The faint light was pulled off the wand by Ryan as if it were a physical entity. Harry, lend me your ability. Browse. Under Ryan's control, the ability to lie was like a precise, deft scalpel, easily cutting into the seemingly eternal glimmer and transforming it. The glimmer returned to the wand. The wand sank back into Dumbledore's arms. The rune on Harry's forehead also disappeared. At the same time, Ryan's armor also disappeared. Walls, towering towers, and planes flying in the dark sky. Time began to flow again. The two people in the principal's office started talking again. The will of the god of death seemed to have returned to the country where only the dead could stay without realizing it. Ryan also returned to the study, and time went back to the next second when Ryan summoned the armor and said removal. Chung-ching noodle steaming. The core of Caradoc's staff is also a phoenix feather, also from Fawkes. Very much like him, Harry, you are. Not on the outside, but on the inside. The only difference is that he is a Gry finder. If he stayed in the lounge all day like you, he would be busy all the time. He will go crazy. His wand is made of sycamore wood. Owners of this type of wand are often open to exploration and eager for new experiences. If you keep doing ordinary things, they will lose their luster, perhaps. This was the first time Dumbledore had confessed so much to Harry. He began to talk about his lost friends in the Order of the Phoenix. Especially Caradoc. This descendant is like his nephew. He is no longer like the greatest white wizard now. More like an ordinary old man. I don't know how long it has been. It was not until the curfew bell rang in the distance that Dumbledore came back to his senses. Is it so late now? Dumbledore stretched his neck. He was very surprised by this because in fact, he was going to show Harry some memories today, related to Horcruxes. He had to let Harry know this before the final battle. If he dies, Harry can use these to find Voldemort's remaining Horcruxes. Harry could then either destroy them or collect them for research. If by any chance they really fail, Harry can also defeat Voldemort by destroying the remaining Horcruxes. Horcruxes, as well as committing suicide. Thinking of this, Dumbledore couldn't help but smile. I have thought many times about the possibility of their failure. But he didn't notice any of it. This is why he was not too nervous about the fact that his child's birth date almost overlapped with the time of Voldemort's resurrection. You can even discuss with Harry the tedious matters of naming the child after he is born, godfathers, etc. The only thing he fears now is sacrifice. Victory is inevitable. But what about else? The Death Eaters on the island were so destitute that they resorted to eating rats and using the bones of their dead companions as weapons. There should be no wands left. While Voldemort and the Death Eaters had no wands, he had the youthful and evolved version of everyone, Voldemort and Gettiler. He also had the Elder Wand, one of the 3 Deathly Hallows. Maybe there won't even be any sacrifice. This competition is just a preview. By then, the 3 of them will act as warriors. Voldemort and his Death Eaters are the level. The other students and professors only need to use war magic on them. Dumbledore shook his head and returned to the real world. In the headmaster's office, Harry was staring at him, eyes meeting him. Dumbledore sighed helplessly. Then let's end today's class. Shrieking shack. But isn't it only 10 o'clock now? Even though it's curfew time. But we usually go to bed in the lounge around 12 o'clock. Even later. Harry was a little disappointed. He just watched Dumbledore stunned for a few seconds. I thought I would enter into real teaching, but unexpectedly it was in order to expel the guests. So this class is just for heart-to-heart talks? He had thought Dumbledore would teach some more complicated magic. All Ryan taught him were opportunities to improve his basic knowledge and strengthen himself. These are closer to essential improvements. In other aspects, Ryan has always let him develop on his own. Thanks to Jijing for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 586, The Marauder's Map. It was 8 o'clock in the morning, in the Ravenclaw student dormitory, on the 4-poster bed in the corner. Ryan was flipping through a book with an absurdly long title, and except for him and Harry, around them he was still fast asleep. The book is called A Study of the Actual and Abstract Consequences of Natural Death, with particular interest on the reunification of spirit and matter. Its author is Bertrand de Panzy Profounds, as a study of how to avoid natural death both practically and abstractly, and especially of the reunification of spirit and matter. Voldemort, Dumbledore and Grindelwald are all fans of this book. But for Ryan, the book was too negative. Profoundus is well versed in how to avoid death. But he knew nothing about the field of resurrection. Ryan, can I ask you a question now? A voice suddenly sounded in his ear. It's Harry looking at him anxiously. It just so happens that this book makes me. Ryan closed the book with a snap, turned it into a shadow and threw it down. It then passed through the bed and regained its solid form just before it hit the ground. Dumbledore confessed to me. He informed me that I was a Horcrux. Also, Grindelwald is pregnant. He doesn't have the energy to pay attention to me anymore. Do I need to construct lies until April next year? Need. But this is just in case. Let me give you a suggestion. Hogsmeade Day is usually on Sunday. It is usually held on the last Sunday of the second month of school. But because of the championship, I can go every Sunday now. And next April will also be a Sunday. Hogsmeade every Sunday. Just come back late. Ryan lied without changing his expression. Grindelwald's pregnancy was the result of his recent impulse. Naturally, there will be no need to be as troublesome as the original future. Grindelwald and Dumbledore are still worried about resurrection. But now that they have children, they no longer pay much attention to it. It is a very exhausting thing for a wizard to be pregnant. Not to mention that Grindelwald is so old. Although he can rely on his nature as a demigod wizard and a large amount of magic potions and supplements to recover. But inevitably, their insight will decline. He would no longer have the intention to discipline Harry. Plus, They didn't connect the figure in the prophecy with Harry from the beginning. Harry, why do you suddenly want to go to him? Hogsmeade? Don't you care too much about it? Ron asked Harry curiously at the Ravenclaw table. Ginny. And I have an appointment to go to Madame Puddifoot's tea shop. Harry lied seriously. Ron believed it immediately. This made Harry wonder if Ron believed what he said rather than the influence of his ability. But Ginny is only a second year. Is Ginny going to go through the passage through the Whomping Willow? It's too dirty there, not suitable for humanoids to walk in. Ron looked at Ginny with a bit of heartache. He thought it wasn't worth it. Lupin was not here now, so he couldn't go there directly through the Floo network in the fireplace in Lupin's room. In response, Ginny just hummed happily. Harry already thought of that. Fred and George specifically told us about a secret passage. We can go through there instead of. Ginny looked towards the front hall, where Filch was holding her long list and checking each person fiercely, looking at each person's face suspiciously, guarding against anyone who shouldn't be there slipping out. Draco and Pansy were there too. Today the two of them planned to spend a good day in Hogsmeade. Therefore Crabbe and Goyle did not follow them. Instead, he was with several other Slytherin students whose names he couldn't remember. What? A secret passage. Ron quickly lowered his voice. I'm their brother. In fact, it's more than just a secret passage. Harry took out a piece of parchment a little awkwardly, took out his wand, and touched it lightly. I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good. Thin lines of ink, as thin as a spider's web, immediately began to appear where the wand had just touched. The lines merged and crossed each other, extending to every corner of the parchment. Then words began to appear above the patch, in large curved green letters. They were, supplier of aids for the magical mischief maker Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, gentlemen proudly presenting the Marauders map. And Moony Prongs. Ron didn't even have time to get jealous. These are your dad and Lupin. Did Fred and George give this to you? How did they get it? Did Lupin give it to them? However, Ron didn't listen to Harry's answer. Harry said that the parchment was found by Fred and George in Filch's room during detention. Ron turned a deaf ear to it. He just quickly took the parchment and studied it. This map shows every detail of Hogwarts castle and grounds names. Just like where they are now. Next to his footprints, there were 4 small chicken claw-like marks with the word Banban written on them. Next to Filch were 4 slightly larger plum blossom seals with the word Norris written below. He quickly looked towards the Black Lake again. There were densely packed footprints gathering in the center of the Black Lake. Crumb doesn't seem to be planning to come out. Ron said indignantly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587 Ron's Secret. The train station you stop at when you arrive at Hogwarts actually has a name. Its name is Hogsmeade Station. There are 2 roads there. One of them leads to Hogsmeade, the only purely wizarding village in the UK. The other was the rough and muddy road that students in their second year and above took to Hogwarts in carriages pulled by thestrals. At the end of the road, there were stone pillars on both sides of the road, with winged wild boars at the end. Behind it is a magnificent cast iron gate. This gate is kept tightly closed on weekdays and is only opened at the beginning of term, the end of the school year, and Hogsmeade Day. On that day, only students in grade 3 and above with a consent form signed by their parents could leave the castle and head directly to the Iron Door. The other students had to stay in Hogwarts Castle for the time being until the Iron Gate closed again. However, there is no need to worry that the students in the castle will feel impressed because the Iron Gate will only open at fixed times of the day. At other times, students who cannot go to Hogsmeade are free to walk outside the castle. However, this also led to one point, that is, the Iron Gate leaving Hogwarts would only be unguarded during that time in the morning, when Filch was counting the students in the castle in the front hall. During the rest of the time when the Iron Gate is open, there are usually teachers and staff guarding there. Sometimes it was Hagrid, sometimes it was other professors. But it won't be Filch, because he doesn't know magic. He could only show off his power in the morning when he was counting the students' certificates in front of the oak door. But now, as a wizard, Filch is qualified to guard the Iron Gate. This might be why Filch seemed happier than usual. Harry thought so as he and Ron were queuing up to leave the castle. Soon they passed the inspection, walked down the stone steps, and came to the Iron Gate. They passed through the stone pillars, got on the carriage pulled by the night thestrals, and set off accompanied by the familiar smell of mold and straw. In the carriage, Ron couldn't wait to take out the Marauder's map and looked at the Black Lake again. Huh? Crumb's still not moving. The map. After some searching, Ginny's name was finally found in the passage behind the one-eyed witch statue on the 4th floor. She was walking slowly towards Honeydukes at the end. 10 minutes later, the two finally saw the familiar platform again. But this time, the carriage did not stop, but continued to move towards another cobblestone road. Are so few people? I just noticed it. There are far fewer people going to Hogsmeade than in previous years, Harry said, looking out the window at the sparse carriages. Ron sat down again. I know that. People like Ernie from Hufflepuff didn't go. He said he wanted to practice the 3 spells he received yesterday. Read it several times. Find the best fit. And the not-so-suitable ones. Do more preparation anymore. They can always go there some other time later. Okay. Harry looked down at the Marauder's map on his lap again. How come? Ginny's name is gone. Let me see. Ron came over quickly. It's Honeydukes. Huh? Why is there not a single ink spot at this Honeydukes location? Also, how come the only thing showing up in Hogsmeade is Honeydukes? After hearing what Ron said, Harry breathed a sigh of I almost forgot. This relief is the map of Hogwarts. Ginny probably had reached Hogsmeade by now. As for why only Honeydukes is displayed, it is probably because there is a secret passage from this shop to Hogwarts. What about the Shrieking Shack? That's because this location is related to Lupin's werewolf identity. My dad and his team didn't include it when they made the map, probably to protect Lupin's identity from being leaked. Facing Ron's question, Harry thought for a moment and answered. Well, then I can go to Davis Spans, a shop that sells and repairs some magical equipment, without worry. Ron rubbed his hands. She seemed to be looking forward to the store. Are you going to buy it? Or repair something? Harry was a little curious about this. He had never heard Ron mention the name of the store before. It's a secret. Ron smiled mysteriously. Hogsmeade. Harry and Ron separated. Harry also met up with Ginny at Madame Puddifoot's tea shop. The two of them stayed in the tea house for a long time and had lunch at the same time. Although the tea house was small and the food they ate was mostly desserts, they were still very happy. Then came the outdoor activities. At the Men of Letters quill shop, Harry bought Ginny a quill that sang a soothing song as he wrote, and Ginny used the money she earned from working at the Quibbler to buy Harry a bottle of calming ink that released an anxiety-relieving scent as he wrote. At the Wizarding World store, Harry and Ginny tried on clothes but didn't buy anything. At the Three Broomsticks they bought large bags of butterbeer from the barkeeper, Madame Rosmerta, and drank them as they did walked, using straws. Even went to the legendary Hogshead bar. That's where they found Ron and a man. It is indeed easy to find them among a crowd of people who wrap themselves tightly. It was also at this time that Harry learned the secret of why Ron went to Davis Spans. Hey, buddy, you can go and ask around. Smoke bottles are selling well in Hogwarts. 73% is not too high of a price. But I have heard about the 50-50 split you agreed with other dealers. Then you may be ignorant. The other dealers you mentioned are my 2 twin brothers. Is your last name Weasley too? I don't mind. If it's 50-50, you can call me Davis Weasley. It's okay to change the name of the store. You should know that I just talked to Zuko, Davis. Okay, 70 hours, and 30 minutes. After a long conversation, the middle-aged man with a goatee sitting opposite Ron finally agreed to the profit-sharing ratio. Harry and Ginny looked at each other in surprise. My goodness, Ron is here to discuss business. Harry was surprised and wondered if there was something wrong with his ears. That's not the problem. The problem is that Ron actually abandoned Fred and George and chose to cooperate with others. Ginny was stunned. This is simply not something Ron could do with his intelligence. Just now, he seemed like a different person. Thanks to classmate Shu Mengzhong Halo for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 588 Weird Ron. How can you spy on me? Followed by Ron's rapid-fire complaints. In response, Ginny made a scathing comment. I remember that it was Fred and George who helped you sell the smoke bottle at first. How are you? I really doubt you got into Ravenclaw by luck. In the Hogshead, when no one else could see your face, you, with your red hair and face exposed, loudly discussed her little abacus. Who can't hear your conversation? There were some even harsher words, but Harry had subconsciously forgotten them. The result was that Ron was still unwilling to speak a word to Harry and Ginny until he returned to Hogwarts. Harry suspected that Ron's refused to pay attention to them until now he had more to do with Ginny's words than anything else. Time: Friday, September 9th. By the lawn of the Black Lake, Harry looked speechlessly at Ron, who was about 10 feet away from him. Harry didn't understand Ron. It's just such a small matter. Just like Harry couldn't understand why Ron took so long to resolve the misunderstanding between Ron and Krum, which could have been resolved with just a letter. During this time, Ron continued to stay by Harry's side as usual. But he always kept a distance of more than 10 feet. And apart from handing over food or something like that, he hardly said a word to Harry. Draco and Neville also thought Ron was too weird to talk to him. He was not moved by Professor McGonagall's cat-like appearance in the Transfiguration class. In the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, the PowerPoint presentation by Professor Riddle of a nuclear bomb exploding in Japan did not surprise him. Even in the Divination class, when Professor Trelawney predicted his third possible death, he did not refute it distracted by Ron. Today we are going to learn about the dwarf pig monster. I think some of you have already discovered it. The teeth turned white. As for why Yale was turned into this, well, Harry? You answer. Until Hagrid called his name. Harry finally came to his senses. Only then did he realize that he was in class. Next to Hagrid, a stunted pig was whining and looking for a place to hide in the flowers. It has long legs, a stubby tail and squinty black eyes. And opposite to it is Yale. Teeth dyed white. Since he didn't hear what Hagrid was asking, Harry could only choose. It's called a dwarf pig, native to Europe, Russia, and the United States. In the classification table it belongs to, capable wizards can handle it. The dwarf pig monster will sneak into the pig pen, feed on the sow's milk along with the normal piglets, and bring disaster to the farm. The longer the piglets lurk, the longer the outbreak on your farm will last. At the same time, the dwarf pig monster moves very quickly and is difficult to catch. The only way to stop it from returning to the farm is to chase it away with a pure white dog. To deal with this problem, the Ministry of Magic's Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures Pest Advisory Service has bred a dozen albino hounds. Harry? Didn't you hear my question? Hagrid looked confused. He was clearly asking why Yale wanted to turn white. But Harry answered the questions about his origin, habits, hazards and treatment methods. Facing Hagrid's disappointed and confused look, Harry remained silent. Ron, who was not far away, trembled slightly. Then, in Care of Magical Creatures, Harry got no extra marks for answering a question for the first time days. I'm sorry to tell you that I was wrong. I actually know you're not spying on me. I'm just too nervous. The first time I talked about business, it was too stressful. Then they take out their negative emotions on you. Then, the two reconciled dramatically. Of course, before reconciling, Harry also put forward some conditions to Ron. One of them was to write a letter to explain things to Krum. Ron agreed. However, nothing seems to have changed. Harry was very confused about this. But he had no time to wonder because it's Saturday from then on. The courses related to the competition also began. Alchemy class from 10 to 11 o'clock as before. They were divided into 3 teams according to grade in grades 1 to 3. We learned how to process black iron and cotton words. This time the spell is a slowing spell. A spell that slows down the speed of falling objects. However, the difference this time is that the students are no longer responsible for entering the magic words. The average score this time is the number of metallic products with a ball of wool appearance divided by the number of people points. She looked like she was about to cry when Professor Sprout came out. She never thought that her own college could become successful at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was time for the group potions class. The professor of this class was changed to the witch who looked like someone who was not to be trifled with. Spell was replaced with a levitation spell at the war magic class, which was changed to 4 o'clock. All 4 schools completed the assigned tasks in the previous week. The professor is still Dumbledore. He laid out what needed to be done in this class. Practicing the first spell at Hogwarts had succeeded. Due to the number of students in other schools, almost half of the students were successful. Then Dumbledore arranged for to go down and practice. At just 6 o'clock, the war magic course was over. It's time for dinner. At this moment, Harry could finally ask the question in his mind, why Krum was still behaving the same as before. Then, Lavender turned around and said, Krum wrote me a letter. In the letter, she apologized to me and said that she pursued me without knowing that I had a boyfriend. So, He was afraid that Ron would pursue him before. I'm too embarrassed to face Ron now. Harry looked towards the Durmstrang table where Krum had just sat. How could Krum and Ron make such a big fuss over such a small matter? Chapter 589 Eating Hot Pot in the Auditorium. Time: 6:30. In the auditorium, while others were still discussing the content of today's class, Ryan was still eating slowly. He didn't understand why the other students at Hogwarts hadn't noticed this. The food lately had been delicious, ridiculously delicious. How can they simply attribute the change in taste to the kitchen being more attentive due to the arrival of the other 3 schools, a level that can only be achieved with the Hufflepuff cup? There are no advanced alchemical tools in the world specifically for cooking. Only Hufflepuff, perhaps the Chinese magic world, where food is everything, might have such a prop? Because Rowling set up that there is no magic school in China, and someone didn't want to make a weird one, and China's current timing is also awkward, so I won't set up another one. This golden cup is really amazing. If it is placed in the Chinese cooking master boy, it can even serve as the legendary kitchen utensil. It contains the magic of maximizing the deliciousness of each ingredient and harmonizing with each other. Now it sits in the kitchen closet. It returned to the magic array where it was first created. Now, all food cooked in the Hogwarts kitchens is affected by the magic of the Hufflepuff cup. Look, even Snape, who has always held himself to almost ascetic standards, now has a double chin, and Durmstrang's ship to prevent acclimatization have been shut down for almost a week. As for the redwood tree in Castor Bues, there was no kitchen in it. Their school culture doesn't really care about food. Ryan had even visited the Castello Butch Castle in the Brazilian rainforest during their lunch the other day. The food in their canteen is very simple. The meat is simply seasoned with some spices and a pinch of salt to remove the fishy smell. During the ceremony, they would eat some barbecue. Leon learned this from the memories of the students who were eating. The staple foods are rice, black beans and cassava flour. The vegetables were blanched with some sour and spicy unknown sauce. In short, this made Ryan, who originally wanted to try something new, feels tasteless. Ryan originally thought that the various cold and low-fat foods in the Japanese Magic Institute would be the standard for magic school diets. Unexpectedly, Castor Bues is not much behind last year and went to the Magic Institute. I want to try some Japanese specialties. After all, its diet pretty much originated in China, so it shouldn't be bad. But Ryan only had a variety of sushi and sashimi bite of tripe with relish. That's right. Tripe does not appear as a separate food in the UK, and it is not called this name. While others were enjoying English and French meals, Ryan enjoyed authentic Chongqing hot pot. Hot, bright red butter pot bottom. It now overlaps with the kitchen, sharing the gourmet aura from the Hufflepuff Gold Cup. Burning under the pot is the everlasting Goblet Fairy Fire. For the dipping sauce, Ryan chose a simple sesame oil and minced garlic. For drinks, Ryan chose canned cola from the freezer at PepsiCo's headquarters in New York, USA. Freshly baked, just taken out of the cupboard, still steaming cold. This is what is called authentic. Potatoes, duck blood, goose intestines, beef and shrimp slides swim in the red ocean. A translucent TV was floating in the air, playing the movie Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Penelope, Kate, Hermione, Luna and even Fleur were not around. But to be precise, they all have Ryan by their side. Ryan, who was eating hot pot and almost singing, was separated on purpose in order to enjoy the joy of eating alone. It was a wonderful experience to watch The Prisoner of Azkaban in my 3rd year at Hogwarts. Ryan now thought of the real prisoners of Azkaban. The average nighttime temperature in September in the UK is 10 degrees Celsius. And now they were in the icy North Sea again. In addition, there was a shortage of food and clothing. Thinking of this, even Ryan, who is not a religious person, couldn't help but say amen. In order not to hurt his only compassion, Ryan chose to change the channel. The Azkaban that flashed across the translucent TV in front of him disappeared. It was replaced by the principal's office. Maybe he was worried that he wouldn't have enough time this time. Harry arrived at the headmaster's office early. Fox is also here this time. Perhaps it was because of Harry's shallow phoenix-like magic that could not bring him immortality. Fox and Harry were particularly close. It flew over his head affectionately and used Harry's head as a bird's nest. Dumbledore, who was sitting on a high-backed chair with his hands on the long table, looked suspicious. He seemed to be wondering whether his family was related to the Potter family. He noticed that Dumbledore was looking at him strangely. "Dumbledore, what are you? Ahem, I just wanted to teach you something. Horcruxes first, or some useful little tricks," Dumbledore said. As soon as his voice sounded, His eyes turned to the cabinet next to the door. Harry followed the look and saw the door of the cupboard open of his own accord. Then there was the bright silver light. And the light comes from a shallow stone basin in the cabinet. There were strange carvings on the rim of the basin, all letters and symbols he didn't recognize. However, it wasn't the letters and symbols that most curious Harry. But what shape is the glowing thing in this basin? At first glance, it looks like a piece of bright silver, seemingly solid. But upon further inspection, it was discovered that it was constantly flowing, like ripples on the surface of water in a breeze, which again seemed like liquid. But further observation revealed that it dispersed and swirled softly like a cloud, which made it look like gas. In short, it is like light turning into liquid, and at the same time like wind condensing into solid. However, this stone basin gave Harry a sense of déjà vu. It reminded him of the summer vacation after the end of the school year. Is this stone basin the one from the Corpse Cave? But what is inside this? Don't doubt about it. Second only to the Deluminator I gave you. You also seem to have invented a spell out of it, the dark spell? I heard Sirius say it was very creative. Dumbledore said, as for what's inside, it's my idea. Thanks to Jijing for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 590 Pensieve. Thoughts? This reminded Harry of the smoke bottle. Is this the same as Ron's invention? It's more akin to Skywalker cinema in terms of affects your thoughts into this basin and take a good look at it when you have time. You know, it's easier to see their shapes and their connections to each other in this state. What do you mean by tricks and Horcruxes? It will be necessary. Dumbledore drew his wand. The pensieve flew toward him and landed safely on the table. Then he used the tip of his stick to poke at the thoughts in the pot. A human figure immediately rose from the basin. It was a boy of about 17 or 18 years old with long reddish-brown hair. But his nose was not broken and his legs were still standing in the basin. It's a young Dumbledore. This young version of Dumbledore didn't even look at Harry or Professor Dumbledore. He held the wand in a very strange position. Bless you all. The sound of the chanting was accompanied by an echo, as if it came from the depths of the stone basin. If it's a trick, today I'll teach you the unique gesture of holding the wand, the magic that this gesture is suitable for, and how to use it in actual combat. He stared at Harry over the top of the half-moon lens. This is indeed very useful in a duel. I remember this when I was in 7th grade, and I won the Barnabas Finkley Award for Excellence in Spellcasting with it. Dumbledore fiddled with the thoughts in the basin again, and the young version of Dumbledore sank, and the basin turned opaque silver-white again. But if it is related to the Horcrux, I will show you some memories related to it. As Dumbledore said this, he inserted the tip of the wand into his silver hair, close to his temple. When he pulled out his wand, there seemed to be some hair-thin silver-white substance stuck to the tip of the wand, and he added it to the basin. Harry was surprised to find that a familiar house appeared before him. That's where he'll be next April. The old, run-down Gaunt house. This is actually supposed to be Bob Ogden's memory. He worked at the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. But he was not very willing to provide it to me. Just showed me. So this is your memory of looking at Mr. Ogden's memory. Do you know where this is? Harry stammered. Voldemort's Horcrux, the ring is inlaid with the legendary Resurrection Stone. Harry's goal. You're quite right, Harry. This house belongs to Gaunt. I mentioned it before. It is Voldemort's mother clan. The bloodline he truly recognized. These memories are those of Ogden's visits to the Gaunt family. Among them appear Voldemort's mother, uncle, and grandfather. Even his unwilling father, Dumbledore said lightly as he looked at the house spinning in the basin. Ron, Neville, Draco, and Ginny surrounded Harry, who had just returned. Why didn't you choose to look at the memory? Isn't this related to Voldemort's Horcruxes? Maybe there is a Horcrux in, that old Gaunt house. Ron was very excited. Yes, and there are also the mysterious descendants of Slytherin. They must all be noble and elegant. Draco on the side couldn't help but become intoxicated. Morphin Gaunt, with thick hair matted with dirt and a mouthful of crooked yellow teeth, expressed deep emotion. Marvolo Gaunt, with his broad shoulders, 2 long arms, and a wrinkled face like an old monkey, burst into tears when he praised someone for his nobility. Merrippy Gaunt, the only one who could be considered clean, with straight hair, plain looks, and eyes that stared in 2 opposite directions like her brother, began to try hard to find elegance in herself. Just shut up, Ron. Harry's heart skipped a beat and he looked at Ron unhappily. How come Ron guessed it right at once? Still think the gestures Dumbledore taught are more interesting. I've heard of the Barnabas Finkley Award for Excellence in Spellcasting. It is an award with a very high threshold, and it would rather not be offered if there is no wizard who deserves the award. It requires a certain age of the wizard and the originality of the gesture. Neville expressed the opposite opinion. Harry's decision is the most correct one. It doesn't matter which one he chooses. Ginny is naturally the one who has no principles and almost always follows Harry's opinion. She looked at Harry lovingly, almost pressing herself against him. Harry could only give a painful smile at this, and had no choice but to go up and hug Ginny. And quickly continued Ginny's words, "Ginny is right. I think this choice is undoubtedly the right one. Think about it, I'll be able to see those memories sooner or later. And watching the young Dumbledore learn more advanced spellcasting skills was undoubtedly more rewarding. How nice it would be if I could make them my own one day earlier." Draco disappointedly. Then he looked at Harry and said, "Then you must tell me after you see the mysterious Gaunt family. That's the descendant of Slytherin. Even the branch of Slytherin founded a very powerful magic school in America, Alvermorny. Slytherin's direct descendants must be even more amazing. Gaunt had not been to Hogwarts for centuries. They are said to be homeschooled. Maybe Voldemort got a profound magical knowledge from Gaunt, which made him become the Dark Lord who dominated the entire European wizarding world. Obvious? Although we have cast magic around. Prevent the sound of our conversation from being heard by others. But this is not a reason for you to pick up a Horcrux at a time. This is Ravenclaw, the house of smart people. Who knows, someone might just bypass our magic and hear us. Plus, I know about Horcruxes." Ron looked around seriously, then looked very understanding. "It's really my fault. I almost forgot, the students here are all smart people. Not like in the Slytherin, Gryffindor, or Hufflepuff common rooms where you don't have to pay attention. You know, here's me, Harry, a smart and excellent student from Ravenclaw. My bad." Quotation mark. Chapter 591. You shut up. Time flies and it's already October. Everything at Hogwarts was as fun as usual. At least that's what Ryan thought. He was not troubled by the sudden increase in academic pressure in the 3rd grade. These things are still a piece of cake for him in his mortal state of mind. Now there are mainly a few things that are particularly interesting to Ryan. First, the time for the individual competition was recorded on the old notice board next to the fireplace in the lounge, afternoon of November 11th. That was Wednesday afternoon, means that classes will stop afternoon in the afternoon. All you have to do is watch the performances of the selected warriors. This also means that the warriors' selection is about to take place. I don't know if it is still the Goblet of Fire from the original world line, and until now, there has been no mention of rewards. What will be offered for individual victories? Could it be that the 1,000 galleons were swallowed directly as a win for school funding? And the first event of the group competition, War Magic, will be held this month. The specific time has not yet been determined. But in terms of learning progress, students from the 4 colleges have almost mastered their corresponding spells. They can also resonate with the magic of students of adjacent spells. Ryan was very curious about the effects of these 3 magics that had not yet been put into practical use. In order to keep things fresh, Ryan even set up corresponding restricted areas in the Mind Palace. Recently, because of Ryan's influence, Harry had private lessons from Dumbledore in his 3rd year, and the content also contains more valuable information rather than an immersive movie like the one in the world line called The Past and Present of Voldemort. In the last 4 private lessons, Harry learned the universal hand gestures for casting protective spells, the unique combat methods against magical creatures, which Voldemort used on unicorns in his 1st year, and watched immersive films called The Decline of the House of Gaunt and The Love Story of Voldemort's Parents. The first 2 were things that Dumbledore brought into the coffin in the original world line. Harry hadn't touched it at all. In addition to these key scenes, Harry's daily life is also very interesting. After each divination class, just like in the original world line, whenever the students around him spoke to Harry, their voices became soft, as if he was already lying on the bed. But there is one thing that is a pity about Ryan. Perhaps considering Lavender's mood, Trelawney did not say to Lavender, her favorite student, "The thing you are afraid of will happen on October 16th. Now, even if Lavender's rabbit was bitten to death by the fox on October 16th as in the original world line, Trelawney's ability could not be demonstrated. Therefore, the attention, which was considered a hardship for Harry, was expected to weaken after the warriors were selected. The third is to eat hot pot. Ryan has been eating hot pot in various classes as if no one is around. Recently, I even dragged Hermione into the hot pot party. However, for Ryan, the best time to eat hot pot is undoubtedly potions class. A cauldron is great for cooking hot pot. And only the potions classroom has a stone sink in the corner. This allows Ryan to experience the joy of washing dishes in pot's wall. Furthermore, eating hot pot in front of Snape, the professor who frightened almost all students, and eating hot pot in a crucible was very fulfilling. If Ryan's system had the same achievement function as in other fanfictions, the achievement reward would at least be a magic stone. And now, Ryan is using the crucible to boil the bottom of the pot. Today's hot pot has been made less spicy and spicy more for Hermione's sake. Its color is also clear, rather than the thick and cloudy color of ordinary hot pot. The students around were playing and fighting. Dudley was holding Ernie down with one hand, and was talking to him about something. Hannah and Susan chattered, and from time to time they glanced at Neville, who was holding his head high and looking like a thinker. Ron boasted to Harry about the recent sales of his smoke bottles. Little did he know that Fred and George had already known about Ron's betrayal and were lying in ambush at the place where Ron had to pass through the lounge. However, in an instant, the classroom became quiet. Would everyone suddenly stop talking when nothing happened? Ryan smiled and added another piece of ginger to the boiling cauldron. Before the potions class starts and Snape comes, if you promise not to tell Luna, I can tell you the answer. Hermione raised an eyebrow and pouted, you said so. This is the group sensitive to the environment plus the coincidence of some individuals' unconscious pauses plus the group's conformity. Ryan said with a smile. Speak human language. Frowned. To put it bluntly, it's synchronicity. This is an instinct inherited from genes. Because there was some overlap in the frequencies of their speaking just now, but it happened to be very quiet during the period of time when they stopped. Our instinct tells us that this is a sign of a predator approaching. Then naturally no one dared to speak. Because no one wants to be a target of predators. Wait a minute, 1, 2, 3. Warm up and stay when it's so Harry and Dudley, you. Get it? He is the predator. Ryan looked at Hermione, who had a look of sudden enlightenment on her face. Then he slightly flared his nose and said, well, the base of the pot is ready, now add the duck blood and ham. On the stage, Snape looked indifferent. He pulled the curtain on the side and started playing the PPT. The students in the audience couldn't help but shrink their necks. That's the feeling. You look but serious, you can't do anything to me. Ryan took a sip of Coke excitedly. But Professor Snape can't see you, right? Hermione prompted, poking Ryan's elbow. Shut up, please. Chapter 592 Black Envelope. Snape was very depressed. In recent years, he didn't know who he had offended. He receives photos every January 1st, as well as on holidays like Easter and Christmas. Lily's photo. At first there were Lily's elementary school graduation photos, Hogwarts school photos, and wedding photos. At this point, it's understandable. These photos were taken by Lily herself or with her knowledge. But then it changed. The photos were manipulated. Next to all the photos of Lily from childhood to adulthood were added the abominable James Potter at the corresponding age, and himself with ridiculous hair and a pouting mouth. What's even more disgusting is that these photos are attached with an incredibly strong indestructible spell and are firmly affixed to the wall of the office. As a result, he had no choice but to tear down the wall and move to a new office. These photos are undoubtedly invaluable treasures to him. But he just couldn't do it. He couldn't cut James Potter out of the picture. The following photos are even more bizarre. As bizarre someone who once had an extremely close relationship with Lily, he could be sure that these photos were not created by magic. Some of the scenes even show him looking at Lily from his perspective. It was as if there was someone non-existent standing behind him and taking Lily's picture. What's even more terrifying is that these photos are very detailed. The place where the photo might have been taken was by the fireplace. There wouldn't be someone with the great magic skills who would be so bored as to hide in a fireplace and take pictures of people. And looking at the background of the photo, there's a toy broom in the corner. This was the stupid dog's gift to Harry. By then Lily and that guy already had Harry. And he has already hidden himself using the Fidelius charm. Who can enter a house that even Dumbledore and Voldemort cannot break into, which is actually in another dimension? And just to take a picture for him? And today, after brewing the pregnancy-preserving potion under the surveillance of the old man Dumbledore, he received another letter. It's that person. A black envelope with 2 Chinese characters written on it. He has investigated and found out that these are 2 words from the Book of Change's surname, called Zhou in China, and Zhou Yi is not a rare name among wizards. He had no choice but to quickly look through the letter, which contained a piece of parchment. But as soon as his hand touched it, the patch burst into blue flames. The flame burned so fast that his magic power had no time to react. However, this flame had no temperature at all, just like a phantom of nothingness. The burn spread from his fingertips to the top of his head, then countless unclear images rushed into his mind, then he fainted. That was Hogwarts, next to the beech tree on the slope of the Black Lake, where he was hanging upside down in the air, revealing his underwear that was almost turning black. Harry appeared from thin air, a ring in his hand. Harry then removed another stone from the ring. Harry was very excited and was talking to a woman whose figure was illusory and ghostly. The stone turned in his hand 3 times, and the woman appeared. It was Lily. Then the scene changed and they came to the principal's office again. Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Their conversation was vague, as if coming from far away. But he could clearly hear the content of the conversation with a strange sense. They spoke in German, but the words came to him clearly. The story of the 3 Deathly Hallows rang out in the headmaster's office. James Potter's invisibility cloak turned out to be the Deathly Hallows. Grindelwald prophesied a boy with his face in the mist talking to an unseen figure. The resurrection stone was used to resurrect a woman whose appearance and figure could not be seen clearly. What follows is more familiar content. The rules of the competition and the schools in which it should be introduced. How to deal with Voldemort. How to train Harry. Tree shepherd system. Then Snape opened his eyes. He looked at the clock and saw that 10 minutes had passed since he opened the letter. At the same time, he felt a cool sensation on his wrist. He pulled up his wide sleeves, wrist revealing that they were inconsistent with his sallow face. An address flashed by above it, Hogwarts, 8th floor, opposite the tapestry where the troll beat up Barnabas. Then comes the countdown. Based on the current time, the countdown will end at 11 o'clock tonight. Everything is weird. But Snape knew he had no choice. He couldn't tell anyone about this. This matter concerns Lily's resurrection. This was bigger than himself, Dumbledore, or even Harry himself. Late at night, after the 10 o'clock curfew bell rang, everything outside the 4 lounges returned to an eerie silence. The moon hung high in the sky, and the ghosts returned to the unused classroom they had chosen. Filch held Mrs. Norris in his arms and jumped up and down the marble staircase that moved from time to time, as if he was flying. At this moment, a black figure flashed past a corridor on the 7th floor. It's Snape. He walked calmly toward the marble staircase. He knew that the ghost at Hogwarts and the portrait in the frame were Dumbledore's eyes. If he was going to that important but strange appointment sleep. When we arrived at the 8th floor, a door appeared on the wall opposite the tapestry where the giant monster beat Barnabas to death with his stick. Come in. Dumbledore can't see the folding door. He won't notice your disappearance either. A clear voice sounded. Snape could tell the youth of the owner of this voice. He was about to sneer, but his intuition deep in his heart told him to shut up. Looking towards the window not far away, the spider web that was swaying in the wind just now suddenly stopped. He turned and looked downstairs. Filch's excited expression froze as he seemed to have discovered the night-wandering students. What surprised him even more was that Filch was now suspended in midair. He turned his head again, and the troll in the tapestry opposite also stopped holding the wooden stick. It's like it was a Muggle creation. An immobile portrait. Time stopped. Snape's voice was a little dry. But this made his expression more resolute. He understood that perhaps only such a wizard could guide all of this. Then, Lily's resurrection wouldn't be a fantasy. Chapter 593, Unbelievable Request. 11 o'clock, inside the House of Gratification. Who are you? Snape's eyes widened in surprise. He looked deeply at the young man sitting high on the bronze throne. He remembered it all. This is a student who enrolled with Harry. Even he couldn't help but marvel at his handsome face for a moment. I also remember the boy's name clearly. Ryan Smith. Why? Why has he never seen this Smith since the sorting? I never thought about it again. He had clearly marked Smith's homework. Even the top student in the grade is this Ryan Smith. But I have ignored them all. It's as if this person never existed. Lane Smith. Why, you act like you're seeing me for the first time. Professor, you gave me an O, excellent, in potions. Ryan said with a smile. Who exactly is your majesty? Snape immediately changed his address. Time stopped. Kamen Rider Cronus appeared once in Rotherham. Dumbledore's guess, the god of time, woke up, and the time converter was deactivated by the Ministry of Magic. These pieces of information were instantly connected in Snape's mind. Could it be that this young man is the incarnation of a deceased god resurrected in the human world? Ryan raised an eyebrow. Snape's inner thoughts just now were clearly visible to him. Even with Snape's occlumency skills, which surpassed those of Dumbledore and Voldemort, he was unable to hide his brain from Lion. Did you guess it? Severus Snape greets your majesty, Greek Hellenic. Snape immediately changed the language. The whole person prostrated himself on the ground in humility. He placed his hands behind his back in a peculiar gesture, keeping his head facing Ryan. Yes, your majesty. Did the Harry Potter child really resurrect her mother? Ryan rolled his eyes. He could now clearly see Snape's inner thoughts. As long as the resurrection was real, any price Harry Potter would pay for it would be worth his life. I am hesitating. Ryan smiled evilly and deliberately interrupted the sentence, lengthening the ending tone. As expected, Snape's pupils trembled slightly, and he almost shouted, Your Majesty, this is Harry's wish. You should fulfill his wish. And he is also Voldemort's Horcrux. This is better for everyone. But isn't he your favorite student? Ryan said, and he jumped to Snape's side with a wicked smile. Then Snape repeated the previous action, lowered his head towards Ryan again, and crawled on the ground. I did this because I liked him. This is his dream. Furthermore, resurrection is a great ritual that violates the laws of nature. As a Ravenclaw, I think Harry would be willing to sacrifice his life just to get a little knowledge of resurrection. As a teacher, all I can do is encourage him. Snape paused and took a deep breath. If you have any instructions, I am willing to do anything you ask. Just let Harry have his way. If you want to use your invincible power to change the future because this will hinder His Majesty, the God of Death, please allow me to speculate that this little thing should not affect your friendship with His Majesty, the God of Death. If the price Harry paid to resurrect his mother wasn't enough, I would add my humble life. My goodness, Snape actually thought I had a relationship with the God of Death. Ryan thought. I have frowned in displeasure. I have decided to get to the point as soon as possible. Otherwise, I don't know what Snape would think. Your life? It's worthless to me. On the contrary, your life has some insignificant value to me. Your Majesty, I am honored to see you. Snape's nose touched the carpet. Enemies. Crucio. Snape pointed his wand at himself. Please allow your servant to punish himself. How dare you speculate on the relationship between you, your Majesty, and your Majesty the God of Death? Good. Guy. He didn't scream or change his expression when facing the Cruciatus curse. You're very smart. Then I have one more message to add. Harry Potter resurrects his mother. He will not sacrifice his own life. It's just that the resurrection stone will lose its power to revive the dead. Ryan said lightly. Then Snape laughed. The next second, his face turned pale with fright again. Ryan couldn't help but sigh. Wow, the waxy yellow can turn into pale white in seconds. Snape's skill allows him to avoid wearing makeup. Furthermore, he could hold back the Cruciatus curse just now, but he couldn't hold it back after hearing the news. And Snape, please forgive your lowly servant. I'm just glad that Harry didn't have to sacrifice his life. Ryan couldn't help but roll his eyes. Seeing Snape being so humble and respectful. He didn't expose Snape because after hearing that James Potter could not be resurrected, a flash of light flashed through his mind. Sirius's mask of pain because his best friend could not be resurrected, he wearing groom's clothes with Lily in her wedding dress, and Harry calling him father. That made him happy. A mere mortal should not take himself too seriously. Your smile is nothing but an invisible speck of dust to me. Your Majesty, please have mercy. Snape's mouth was almost touching the ground. His eyes rolled around and he asked quickly, Your Majesty, is there anything else you want to tell me? It's true. Ryan intended to be enlightened. He punched his palm with his right hand. And Snape. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. But I didn't dare to wipe it at all. He is just feeling lucky now. I'm glad I asked this question. He subconsciously felt that if he didn't do something for Ryan, Ryan's promise would just be a promise that shouldn't be thought of. Your Majesty, please give your orders. Snape, with turbulent thoughts in his mind, asked respectfully in a low voice. In the real world, the whole person was almost sticking to the ground. It's simple. From now on, I will eat hot pot in each one of your potions classes. Here is the list. Ryan's voice fell, and a piece of patch flew to Snape's face. Before class and prepare them yourself. Don't worry, no one will notice. Just like this. Ryan waved his hand. When Snape opened his eyes, he had returned to the state where he was standing opposite the tapestry of the troll beating Barnabas with a club. Time also summarized his flow. It's like a dream. But the patch on his face confirmed that it was not an illusion. Thanks to classmate Lang Lewin for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594, Pimp Snape. Fir tree resin, pleasant smelling, transparent. It is also one of the ingredients for the tranquilizing potion we are learning today. However, the aroma of fir tree resin is not strong. Against the backdrop of the spicy smell, it's the same as having nothing. And just now, in front of her, Professor Snape was actually praising the aroma of the resin in front of Ryan's cauldron where he was cooking hot pot. He even took a sip pretending to be intoxicated. What's even more unexpected is, Professor Snape was actually cutting potato chips for Ryan. This made Hermione rub her eyes. Isn't this an illusion? Can Professor Snape see Ryan? Then how come he could still smell the fragrance of fir tree resin? Why did everyone else around look at the curtain, as if Professor Snape was giving a lecture there? Even Harry and the others are the same. So, after Snape processing finished the last piece of beef, he actually went to the PPT to give a lecture. Hermione asked quickly, "How did you do this?" In her eyes, Professor Snape is a person with a very strange personality. Even if he knew Ryan's level of magic, he shouldn't be so flattering. "Now, Professor Snape still can't see me," Ryan said with a smirk and took a sip of Coke. "Just shut up." Hermione frowned. Ryan's familiar words reminded Hermione of the last potions class. Her sarcasm towards Ryan, "Professor Snape obviously can't see you, so what's so arrogant about you eating hot pot in front of him?" The result was that Professor Snape could see Ryan. He even cut vegetables for Ryan like a servant, using his superb skills in handling potion materials on a daily basis. In this regard, she just wanted to say, how could Ryan be so narrow-minded? Not strange. Because he is not blind. Lady Granger and His Majesty Smith clearly have a close relationship. In ancient Greek mythology. Except for the greatness of God. The second is their excessive debauchery that goes beyond human morality. As Cronus, the first cause in ancient Greek mythology, what's wrong with Ryan dating a girl who is so much younger than him? Regard, Snape even wondered if there were any good girls in Slytherin who could recommend to His Majesty Smith. Pansy is good. She was engaged to Malfoy. This is a plus in ancient Greek mythology. Or there are the sisters Daphne Greengrass and Astoria Greengrass. Among the Slytherin girls, most of whom are of large and strong build, these two can be considered pearls. Would probably be a piece of cake for His Majesty Ryan. This almost made Ryan, who was eating hot pot, choke. Who is it? Is he that kind of person? This Snape really deserves to be punished. Well, just punish him with a stack of photos of Lily Evans as a child. As for Pansy, he still declined. He still thought Pansy looked like a poodle. The Greengrass sisters' words were just showy. The solution to the blood curse can be announced. There is no need to let them join your own fish pond. There are enough of them now. Anything more would be painful rather than pleasant for Ryan. Nagini and Furin, two companions with maxed out physical and magical attacks, had already taken up most of their energy. And no matter how many more, Penelope probably won't turn a blind eye anymore. People must know how to be content. It's a pity for Mystique. I can't do anything about it. Ryan couldn't help but sigh. It would be great if the third witch he met was Tonks. Owning her is like owning all the girls in the world. Time flies, and it is already mid-October. Today is Friday. In the Care of Magical Things class, Hagrid was introducing a magical creature that looked like a turtle, with jewels of different colors on its shell. It can spray flames from its tail. In the past, people often like to make crucibles out of its shell because under the flames, these jewel-like things on the shells will not be damaged, but will automatically absorb the flames to maintain the shells. Moreover, as the shell of a magical creature, its conductivity to magic power far exceeds that of any crucible made of any material on the market: pewter crucible, brass crucible, copper crucible, silver crucible, and gold crucible. Imagine a cauldron that becomes stronger with use. It is studded with gems, and has excellent magical conductivity. How attractive it is. But there is one thing you should pay attention to. The fire crab is a protected magical animal. Unless it dies. Otherwise, its shell is not allowed to be used as the raw material of any props. However, fire crabs can be sold as pets or exported, but owners must have a special permit. Logically speaking, the appearance of magical creatures like this with commercial value, there should be a large number of students listening to the class attentively. But on the contrary, almost all the students looked towards the direction of Hogwarts Castle from time to time. Even Ron hadn't figured out how to get a fire crab and bring it to a natural end. However, Hagrid's expression did not look surprised. Not angry at all. It all happened this morning. A new message was added to the notice board. There will be a dinner party at 6 o'clock tonight. At that time, the fair referee that Dumbledore mentioned will also appear. Further, if one wins honor for his or her school, he or she can receive a bonus of 1,000 galleons. Even this morning's potions class was not about everyone's absent-mindedness. Everyone who saw it couldn't help but give a thumbs-up prize money. I think you will like this class too. But the only thing that made Harry a little strange was Hermione didn't seem too pleased. He had a sour face throughout the class. After the Care of Magical Creatures class, on the way back to the castle, Neville disappeared into the crowd of Ravenclaws as usual. I ran to Hannah's side. Everyone started discussing the referee again. Yes, the referee must be Professor Flitwick, our head of house. He was a dueling champion in his youth. Then in that case, doesn't that make Harry the champion of Hogwarts? If it's just based on the astronomical level, I'm confident I can win first place. Chapter 595 Goblet of Fire. As soon as you enter the auditorium, Harry noticed that the empty space between the long table and the staff table was now filled with people. They are all students who have no classes in the afternoon. Came here early. Neville, who was not far away, took the lead, making a clear path for Hannah and Susan behind him. Like Hannah or Susan, his mind was completely focused on gossip. As for finding the possible figure of Krum from here, after the last time Harry didn't get extra points from Hagrid, he gave up long ago. In fact, he had already prepared a letter to explain the whole story to Krum. However, he insisted on writing the letter himself and carefully considered his words many times, hoping to help resolve misunderstandings and bring people closer together. Lavender, at Krum's request, did not tell Ron that he already knew the whole story. He felt bad for Ron's feelings. I wanted to give myself some time to build up my mentality. Otherwise, this matter would have been settled long ago. Those wizards who were about to be squeezed there seemed to hit some invisible membrane and bounced back. Harry pulled Ginny over and smiled. Is that you, Ryan? As Harry's voice ranged out, the people who had been staring at him as he walked in just now lost focus and returned to the previous state. Harry walked in and saw Ryan and Hermione. In front of the two of them was a strange round table with a piece cut off in the middle and replaced by an iron pot. The iron pot is divided in the middle by an S-shaped piece of iron sheet, half red and half white. The surrounding area is filled with various cut ingredients etc. Hello, Harry. And Ginny. Hermione said after swallowing a piece of lettuce. Do you want to eat? Ryan waved his hand, and two chairs made of golden enmu appeared on the other side of the round table. There were also two more sets of bowls and chopsticks and two oil dishes on the table. Harry, and said nothing. His eyes were lowered towards the table, as if he wanted to see it through to the fullest. Ryan, what is that? Harry pointed to the center of the crowd. Through the gap, one could vaguely see a wooden cup with a blue-white flame burning inside. And around it is a circle with a radius of 10 feet. It was composed of a thin golden line on the floor. Magic. It's the same principle as the agreement you signed in your first year not to use magic outside of school. The agreement states that once selected, 3 competitions must be held in front of more than 100 wizards. Ryan raised his eyebrows and said lightly. The trace also has a similar prop carrier? And, is it the fair referee? Harry asked. Ryan agreed. Harry wanted to continue asking about Trace, but Ryan waved his hand again. Well, it's not a good thing for you to disappear for too long. Then a feeling of dizziness enveloped my whole body. My eyes were open, but all I could see were colorful swirls. When I came to my senses, everything around me had changed. Harry found himself sitting at the Ravenclaw table. Sitting on the left and right sides were Ron and Ginny. Ron seemed unaware of his departure. And Ginny, like him, was surprised by what she had just experienced. Not far away, 30 feet away from the golden coil, Ryan greeted him with a Coke in his hand. Under the stage. On the stage, Dumbledore appeared. Following closely behind him were the principals of his 3 schools and professors. I wonder if it was his imagination. He always felt that Professor Snape seemed to pause briefly when he looked at Ryan and the others, but Harry just attributed it to his own illusion because his dynamic vision is so strong now. Maybe Snape just had an itchy nose with his dynamic vision that could detect the vibration of a mosquito's wings. It was easy for him to see Snape twitching. With Ryan's magic level, no wizard could see him if he didn't want to. Harry was sure. Unless Ryan treated him like he didn't mind him seeing him. While Ryan was eating from that strange pot under the staff table, next to the goblet of fire, Dumbledore on the stage began to speak. I guess you're all hungry too. And I've waited so long. Then I will make it short. I think you all have guessed it. After all, the goblet has been in the auditorium for almost an hour. It is what I call a fair judge. There is no age or academic limit. As long as you are a student. Within 24 hours between now and tomorrow night, all you have to do is write your name and the correct school name on a piece of parchment. And just drop it into this goblet. But I want to remind you that this competition is not a joke, so don't participate rashly. Once a warrior is chosen by the goblet of fire, he must see the game through to the end. Whoever puts his name into the cup actually forms a magical contract that must be observed. After saying this, Dumbledore waved his wand, and the golden line beside the wooden cup disappeared. There were a wide variety of food on the 7 long tables below the stage. Under the staff table, Hermione, who was eating in small bites because she was not used to it, looked up at Ryan and asked, "Didn't you say that there would be a bonus of 1,000 gold galleons after the Warriors won?" Ryan shrugged and said, "Indeed, but Dumbledore doesn't want students to put their names into the goblet of fire because of gold galleons. The information you mentioned will be announced after the group potions class tomorrow night. By then, the Warriors selection will also be announced. The remaining chapter will be posted later today. P.S. Thanks to Puyelli for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription." Chapter 596. Depressed Harry. Unexpectedly but expectedly, except for the Hufflepuff table and Ron. Most of the students at the other tables did not eat right away. They held knives and forks in their hands. But they just held their hands and started discussing what Dumbledore had just said. The correct school name? It seems that some of our friends will be eliminated because of this. Want to listen carefully to the rules of the individual competition. Find out now when your first project will start. What about the team competition? Didn't we agree on this month? What Dumbledore said is that we already knew the content of the individual competition, which is why we have been waiting for more than a month since the beginning of the school year congratulating him on becoming a warrior. Bogsplitton's warriors a lesson. Yes, slandering us Ravenclaws. Harry, I really wish you were a Gryffindor student. A warrior sounds more suitable for Gryffindor. Percy even came over from the Gryffindor table and offered to teach Harry some spells that might be useful. Harry, I don't mean to underestimate you. But there are some unpopular spells that are not in school textbooks, but are very useful in adventures. For example, the Obstruction Charm, which can block attackers, the Shattering Charm, which can blow up solid obstacles, and the Direction Charm, also known as the Direction Charm, the help of factors outside the field, such as a flying broom. As for Ron, he didn't hear about the 1,000 gold galleons and didn't care as much as he did in the original world line. Harry, just help me drop off the parchment with my name on it. I'm going to take a walk outside the castle with Lavender in a moment. Fred. And George didn't react much either. Ron, don't forget to work harder when you have free time. Ms. Brown, I hope you can let Ron go back to the common room earlier. Recently, the prank supplies and smoke bottles that they and Ron had rushed to make during the summer vacation have been almost sold out. In fact, neither of them threw the parchment with their names on it into the goblet of fire. After dinner, he disappeared again. Where are the Navi? When finished their meal and gathered around the goblet of fire, Draco walked towards Harry. As for why he asked, he didn't ask Ron. Because everyone had already seen Ron pulling Lavender towards the entrance hall, outside the castle. Harry nodded towards the Hufflepuff table. Draco walked over to Ron's original seat and sat down. Then he asked, "What did Percy say to you just now?" "Recommended me some spells that I might use in the game." Draco looked at the spells. "Not bad. Just looking at the names, they sound very useful." But Draco quickly put down the patch, as he thought of something from what Harry had just said. "Wait, Harry, you don't think you'd be a warrior? You are kidding me. Who could have been a professor in his first year and almost defeated Voldemort head-on? During the summer vacation, he led us to find Regulus, one of the things that destroyed Voldemort's immortality. In the second grade, he developed physically and became the strongest seeker in the world. Predicted Voldemort's actions. Forced him to Azkaban. Eating rats with his wandless minions during the summer vacation. I awakened the power to go to the world inside the mirror, merge with another self and summon Pluto Dragon. Sometimes I even feel that if Dumbledore didn't know you, he would be defeated by you because of the information gap. Who else can be a warrior besides you? Let's not talk about us Slytherins. A bunch of idiots who know a little bit of black magic. Hufflepuff, Dudley is a world-class goalkeeper, possibly the best. Cedric, he has very good grades. He's a decent Quidditch captain, but he's nowhere near you. Apart from dealing with people, Percy is actually much better than him. If the Warriors allow two, Fred and George are more likely. Well, what if I just don't want to vote? Said Harry. He touched the back of his head, feeling very embarrassed. This caused Ginny to exclaim. Draco couldn't help but roll his eyes. You are so naive. I just happened to see that many students in Slytherin alone have written your name. They all think that you are the only one who can represent Hogwarts. Not to mention other colleges. Merlin's beard. Harry slapped his forehead in annoyance. The first project will be on the afternoon of November 11th, but what about the second project? Because of Grindelwald's pregnancy, became alert again. Polyjuice potion combined with Neville's magic-breaking physique would prevent anyone from noticing that anything was wrong with him. And Neville was the only one in the school who had the same physical fitness as in behavior habits that he himself didn't notice. With this combination, from the perspective of magic and pure physics, Neville should not be exposed. Harry, are you alright? Harry. Draco and Ginny asked worriedly. I was planning to this semester peacefully resolved. Ugh, let's go. Harry stood up suddenly. What's wrong? Draco, it's better to vote for yourself. You guys can come along too. What if the warrior is one of you two? That's great, I can just be a student this semester. Chapter 597 Hagrid's Concerns and the Fourth Dragon. Surprisingly, all three classes scheduled for Saturday were cancelled. A new message was added to the notice board in the lounge. In order not to affect the selection of warriors, today's alchemy, group potions, and war magic classes are temporarily cancelled. So Harry and his friends came to Hagrid's hut after a long absence outside the care of magical creatures class. Where are Neville and Draco? Why didn't they come? Hagrid asked in the cabin, frowning as his hair looked like it was burning. Hephaestus above the head waved his hand at Harry and the others. Hagrid's words had just fallen. Ron couldn't help but open his mouth. Neville, he's chasing a girl. But who is he after, Susan or Hannah? It seems like it has been held back for a long time. Draco, isn't he engaged? Pansy must not let him go now that she has some free time. Harry immediately explained. However, Ginny rolled her eyes and asked playfully, what about you, Hagrid? How is your relationship with Madame Maxime? The relationship is progressing very quickly. Ron was about to congratulate Hagrid when he heard what he said, but was stopped by Harry and Ginny. They all noticed that there was no joy in Hagrid's words. Under the messy hair, the thick and dense eyebrows are close to the middle. He looked very sad. Ron was very angry about this. Did that woman cheat on you? I knew it. I want to know what the game is about. She must have found out from somewhere that the magical creatures used in the tournament were all decided by Hagrid. I still remember it. It seemed to be the Hebridean black dragon, the Peruvian venomous dragon, and the Hungarian horntail. Hagrid shook his head. Then how could you? Harry was very confused. He almost thought Ron was right. Facing the doubts of the three people, Hagrid blinked with small black beetle-like eyes and hesitated for a moment. He took a deep breath and said, you all know this. Since last semester, I have awakened extraordinary abilities. Almost all magical creatures have become obedient to me. The humanoid race such as giants is no exception. And Maxime, she's a half-giant like me. Our relationship progressed quickly. I worry that this is because of my ability. Not that she really likes me. So are you just playing around with Madame Maxime? Of course not. I plan to spend my whole life with her. No, I should say get married. Hagrid answered firmly in response to Harry's question. Harry smiled and said, that's it. Since you're serious, why do you think so much? Hagrid, you should know that I have been taking lessons from Dumbledore all this time. Dumbledore once told me that all magic begins in the heart. You have an uncanny affinity for magical creatures. I think it comes more from your unstinting love for magical creatures. Madame Maxime is attracted to you because you seriously want to spend the rest of your life with her. Hagrid lowered his head shyly. Faced with this, he muttered to himself. Hephaestus transformed into a fire snake and rubbed Hagrid's face gently. Fang came closer too, wagging his tail and circling around Hagrid. A giant acromantula, a spade, dropped down from the ceiling on a strand of creamy white silk and landed on the table. Ron. Why is it still there? I thought. Its hairy legs pressed against the back of Hagrid's palm fan-sized hand. Seeing this, Harry decided to seize the opportunity and pursue the victory. He said quickly, Hagrid, look, Fang and the others agree with what I say. And you don't believe me. Don't you believe what Dumbledore said? Hagrid wiped his tears and said, good children, all good children. He rubbed the three of them with his furry beard. Harry took a small step back inconspicuously, thus avoiding the same treatment of having his face rubbed by the beard. Ye's tail wagged even more happily. Hephaestus shyly returned to Hagrid's hair. Alice Spade also followed the spider silk back to the spider web in the corner of the ceiling. After a while, the cabin returned to the way it was when they first arrived. Would have been stuck in this dead end, but Ron, the three-headed dragon you mentioned, that's the magical creature I chose initially. It was prepared for the normal Triwizard tournament. Now there are 4 skulls in total. Ron scratched the back of his head. Is it a 4-headed dragon now? That dragon should be a Portuguese long-nosed dragon. Hagrid, you said you have never seen a live Portuguese long-nosed dragon. Dragons. After attending Harry and Ginny's engagement party, I traveled to Portugal alone. I discovered a group of Portuguese long-nosed dragons near Peneda Girls National Park. They all have light green scales and black eyes, and the longest one is 20 feet long. You all know what happened next. I'm going to choose another fire dragon to add to the competition. Originally, I asked Dumbledore for the Pluto dragon you summoned, Harry. But it was beaten back. Hagrid sighed. Dumbledore said that no student except Harry could subdue the dragon. So Hagrid was interrupted by Ron. Uniforms? Did I hear you right? Isn't the content of the competition to take away dragon eggs or other things that the fire dragon cares about from under its protection? But fight the fire dragon face to face? Uniform? That's crazy. My brother worked on a dragon farm in Romania. Even for dragon taming experts like them who are trained and have mastered a variety of magic spells against fire dragons, it takes 7 or 8 of them to deal with one dragon, not to mention students. Harry can easily win the game by summoning Pluto dragon. What about the other warriors? Hagrid slapped his forehead hard with his right hand, very annoyed. I apologize for accidentally revealing the content of the game, he said helplessly. Running Gorg in front of a fire dragon. The difficulty lies in how to subdue the fire dragon you draw. This will test a wizard's magical level, and this fire dragon is also a prop for the next game. Amount, is that so? Then Hagrid, what's the new dragon? Ginny asked curiously. The ministry gave me 2 choices, the Australian Opoly and the Norwegian Ridgeback. As you all know, I already have Norbita, the Norwegian Ridgeback. It is somewhat similar to the Hungarian Horntail, but it has no spike on the tail and a black ridge on the back. So it's not very suitable. And the Australian Egg White Eye. It is the most beautiful type of fire dragon. It has sparkling, colorful eyes. Although it has no pupils, it doesn't look weird at all. The body is also covered with pearly scales. The flame it spews out is also a very bright red. Chapter 598, Game information leaked again. Harry felt speechless. Hagrid's words just now revealed another piece of information. That is, the second project will use the fire dragon from the first project. They will serve as mounts. The first team event was War Magic. With its blessing, the warriors and the fire dragons faced off one-on-one of reducing wind resistance, avoiding fire, slowing down landing, and softening themselves to reduce impact. Then there is only one answer. The second event was fighting in the air. Even Ron saw through this. Hagrid, is the second project in the air? Dragon Rider. So cool. Haha. Draco would definitely regret not becoming a warrior. Facing Ron's words, Hagrid couldn't help but roll his eyes. Is this a race or something? The Peruvian Vipertooth dragon has the fastest flying speed. If it is a speed race, being lucky enough to choose it means winning the second event in advance. If it's a fight, the Hungarian Horntail has the longest range of fire, about 50 feet. That's a big advantage. Harry's eyes flickered with reminiscence. Ginny asked with half admiration and half curiosity, what about the Hebridean Black Dragon and the Australian White Eye? They're nice, Harry said. That's not fair. That's the equivalent of 2 people competing in the broom race, A speed race in Sweden where pilots fly from Kopparberg to Arjeplog. One uses the latest firebolt, the other uses the ancient meteor. Even if Harry was using the meteor's flying hand, it's a sure loss, Ron said. His ears turned red again, but this time it was not out of shyness, but excitement, because of the unfairness of the game. You idiot, Ginny scolded herself as rudely as usual. Have you the content of the first task? Subdue the fire dragon one-on-one. Those who choose the Hebridean Black Dragon and the Australian White Eye will undoubtedly get a great deal on the first project. The disadvantage of the second project is just equivalent to forgotten paying off debts. Ron couldn't help but retort. Ginny cursed back immediately. The two of them were fighting back and forth, but Hagrid didn't seem to stop them. Or rather, Hagrid remained silent when Ron guessed the second item. Harry asked curiously, Hagrid, why are you silent? Now, I won't say anything, said Hagrid dryly. Obviously, he was afraid to reveal more information, be that the content is about warriors saving injured animals in the Forbidden Forest. I know nothing, said Hagrid word by word. Then he crossed his arms and looked at the wall angrily. But Harry knew that he was more angry with himself. A wordless silence began to linger throughout the cabin. Harry and Ginny blinked and looked at each other. As for Ron, he didn't dare to look up and could only play with his fingers. Hagrid finally couldn't help but speak. I almost forgot, it's almost noon. Did he? The house elf that Harry had seen at Hagrid's place before appeared again. But this time he didn't wait for Hagrid's instructions, saying he was hungry. There were more plates of food on the table disappeared. He walked so fast. I haven't asked about Dobby yet, Ron said. But his eyes were always fixed on the food on the table. His hands couldn't wait to reach for the knife and fork on both sides of the golden plate in front of him. Obviously, he was too embarrassed to start eating right away. I want to say something to amuse other people's attention. However, Hagrid believed Ron's lies and said, house elves usually take pride in solving problems without appearing in front of wizards. If I hadn't called his name, he wouldn't even have been shown up. What did you say? Ron's mouth was already full of meatballs. Eat your meal. Ginny glared at her direct brother. By the way, Hagrid, did you ask us to come over sometime soon? Harry asked while eating his favorite treacle pie. I know, it's to show us the goal of the game. Are the dragons already here, in the Forbidden Forest? Said Ron. As he spoke, he subconsciously glanced at Ginny, which was exactly the same action as Mr. Weasley's when he looked at Mrs. Weasley when she was. Harry couldn't help but snicker. Ahem. Hagrid choked on his pumpkin juice. He looked surprised. How do you know they have reached the Forbidden Forest? Manner, HMPH just. Now when I was idly counting my fingers, I noticed the expression on your face. The way you look at the wall is the same as when you looked at Nobel Tower before. Obviously, you were pretending to be silent just now. Actually, I went to see the dragon. I'm sorry. That's the only thing you guessed right. Hagrid snorted smugly. I didn't call you here to show you the goal of the game. I promised Dumbledore. Keep the content of the competition confidential. Even Maxim is the same. Ron, but didn't we just guess it? Hagrid was frowning. He turned his head away, avoiding Ron's sight. Looking at Harry and Ginny, you're all full now. Harry and Ginny, who had smaller appetites, declined repeatedly. I'm not full yet. Seemed to have not been heard at all. Hagrid opened the door and walked to the edge of the Forbidden Forest, waving at Harry and Ginny to follow. Harry and Ginny put down their knives and forks and trotted over. In response, Ron had no choice but to curse, pick up a few pieces of pie, and follow. Hagrid did not enter the Forbidden Forest and continued inside. After an unknown amount of time, Ron had finished the pie in his hand, and the castle and the lake were nowhere to be seen. As this? A fence appeared in front of Harry. Hagrid smiled mysteriously and led them around the left side of the fence. There is a stone staircase made up of several irregular stones. Harry and the others followed and climbed up. Look, what is this? Harry and the others heard this and stood at the top of the stone stairs and looked through the fence below. 5 saplings appeared in their sight. Chapter 599 Harry's Lies. The tree with the gray-black bark and oval leaves growing at the top of the branches is holly. The one that looks like a spire, with serrated edges on its leaves that get bigger from top to bottom, is a cherry tree. The tree with a straight trunk, brown bark, slender leaves and drooping branches is a willow tree. The leaves of the yew tree are long and regular, growing at both ends of the branches like a palm leaf fan trunk and leaves covered with small white hairs. And now, these 5 trees with different postures are located within the wide fence. Each tree is about 30 feet apart. 5. Ron associated the number of trees with the origin of these books. I remembered, Hagrid, you said before that you had already found a location for our contract tree in the Forbidden Forest. Then, he sensed a vague connection from the willow tree. Hagrid, what did you bring us here for? Ginny asked, glancing at her own yew tree. There are benefits to staying with your contract tree often. Those with talent can awaken their abilities in advance. After all, you all know what we are facing next year. Hagrid rubbed the back of his head. Then he winked at Harry, and his voice rang out in Harry's heart. Harry, if I'm not mistaken, you have already awakened your ability. Do you need me to hide it for you? Harry shook his head shoulder and said, didn't you realize that Harry has awakened his abilities? Ron turned to look at Harry and asked, what is it? Wait, after the magic power transformations, it will combine with the field you are good at, creating a new ability. What Harry is best at, well, is dreaming. Every time he prophesied, it was in a dream. Dream? Ginny sneered, what are you thinking? According to your logic, shouldn't Harry's birth ability be related to the prophecy? Harry, who do you think guessed right? It must be me, Ron and Ginny said at the same time, looking at Harry. Harry hesitated for a moment and then said, my awakened ability is not as cool as Hagrid's example of being able to create fire out of thin air. Maybe it's because I'm good at potions. That is, using magic as an adhesive and catalyst to combine the physical properties of different materials to create potions with various miraculous effects. So my awakened ability is also related to the use of magic. High-precision manipulation of magic power. You can use every bit of your magic power to the best effect. Oh, I see. But it's okay, Ginny, you're not wrong either. Ron was disappointed at first, then he smiled happily. I said you guessed wrong. The ability is related to prophecy, which is just a guess based on your logic. I'm right. Ginny snorted. At this point he jumped down the stone steps, his back facing Ron. He looked like he didn't want to be associated with him. Harry jumped up beside her. As for Ron, he wanted to say something, but then he thought that this was his sister, and it was useless to reason with a girl. He curled his lips and changed the subject. Hagrid, if I insist on looking at my contract tree every day, will my magic transform earlier and give birth to abilities? Remember to talk to Neville and Draco as well. Tell them to come over when they have time, Hagrid said. Then he led back the same way. Along the way, Ron seemed to have quickly forgotten the argument with Ginny. Hagrid, what use is Harry's contract tree after he awakens? Use? After the magic power transformations, the contract tree will also change strong as that of a wand with a core. It can be used as a spare wand. When the contract tree grows up, you can use it to make some wooden products that don't look like wands. Combs, bracelets, eyeglass frames and other items. When necessary, it can replace the magic wand or serve as a sneak attack. I know of a wizard in Castellbush who made a wooden sign out of a branch of his own covenant tree, painted it with silver, and glued it to his gloves. For the glove filing he chose the same material as the core of his wand, unicorn tail hair. I also asked a wand maker to work on it. Because only a wand maker knows how to combine wand wood with magical substances. This greatly increases the power of this wand that doesn't look like a magic wand. He later became an Auror for the Brazilian Ministry of Magic. Relying on surprise attacks, many dark wizards were captured. Hagrid said after thinking for a while. Ron couldn't help but sigh, so, it's quite useful. I think Harry could make a wrist guard. The wristband is so big that it can also fit a phoenix feather. How cool is that? In the 7th volume of Doraemon, Luke Skywalker, Nobita, got the fairness bracelet from Doraemon. With it, I can even fight Darth Vader on equal terms. By the time Harry and the others returned to the hall, it was already 6 o'clock. But it was just dinner time and the place was almost full of people. The 3 long tables next to Slytherin were also filled with students from the other 3 schools. Even the staff tables were almost full. Karkaroff, Madame Maxime, and Madame Varkhanova also sat on it. Grindelwald, like yesterday, was not present. The Goblet of Fire has been moved now in front of Dumbledore's empty chair on the staff table. There was also a banquet yesterday, sumptuous meals as usual. He filled his stomach and looked towards the staff table, with anxious expressions on every face, standing up from time to time to see if Dumbledore had finished eating like a century. Finally, the golden plate returned to its original spotless state, and the voices in the auditorium suddenly became much louder. Immediately, Dumbledore stood up, and the auditorium suddenly became silent again. At the staff table, Karkaroff, Madame Maxime, and Madame Volkanova looked as nervous and expectant as everyone else. Will probably take another minute. Look, when the champions are announced, I want them to walk to the top of the auditorium, past the staff table, and into that next room. He pointed to the door behind the faculty desk, where they will receive their initial instruction. Chapter 600. A farce. The rest of the story was boring, at least for Ryan. Since the spokesperson is still Dumbledore. The prop is the Goblet of Fire, just like in the original world line. This leads to Dumbledore saying almost the same thing as in the novel. The only difference is that today is not Halloween. The floating candle is not inside the pumpkin. But Dumbledore's way of doing things is still very similar to the original world line to the Goblet of Fire, the only source of light. Then, the flames of the Goblet of Fire itself will change from blue-white to red as it spits out the patch, which is the list of chosen warriors. There will also be crackling sparks. Although these operations seemed boring to Ryan. But for children who want to experience the magical world of the 20th century, it is undoubtedly very popular. Those professors can also see the formation and operation of the operations from this set of contracts that create sparks and lightning. The fresh contracts slowly took shape in the rough wooden goblet with a hint of electric sparks as the burnt parchment flew out. Look, this is the end of the operation. Almost in the auditorium they held their breath. The same is true for the staff table and the teachers at the left front door of everyone. The other three school-long tables. Applause that broke out after Dumbledore finished speaking came from Hogwarts. Ron, Krum's leader of fans, and the follower that Krum avoids in the eyes of others. Just like in the original world line, they started cheering loudly. I knew it. Who else could it be? The Durmstrang table, however, was very quiet. Facing the gazes of the people around them, they all lowered their heads to look at the table and remained silent. And Karkaroff on the stage just coughed awkwardly. Eyes lose focus. It was as if the chosen warriors were not students of their school. Dumbledore watched this and applauded. Let us welcome Krum. Come up here, kid. The applause and conversation gradually died down. Now everyone's attention was focused on the goblet again, and after a few seconds, the flame turned red again. A second piece of parchment leaped out of the cup, propelled by the flames. The champion of Boxbuttons, said Dumbledore, is Fleur Delacour. Their brows that were about to frown stopped at the moment they gathered together. Penelope and Kate, Hermione and Luna, the witches who harbor the bodily fluids of the current god of time, suddenly had their consciousness drawn into mind games. And stretched indefinitely. So that they wouldn't notice this magnificent and wonderful scene. Fleur stuck out her tongue and stood up awkwardly from the Ravenclaw table next to Ryan representing Boxbuttons. Then don't sit at this table. Once everyone realized you existed, they found you sitting at the Ravenclaw table. That's too much. Ryan shook his head helplessly. He waved his hand, and Fleur returned to her table at Boxbuttons. Any students or professors in the hall who had noticed her sitting there had also had the memory of Fleur sitting there written into their minds. It was shining with silver light and looked as if it was being blown by the wind. He stood up lightly and gracefully. This also caused the grinding of teeth of countless witches in the auditorium. At the Boxbuttons table, even two girls burst into tears. Even Hermione, who was not interested in the competition, said sarcastically, "Oh, look, they're all disappointed." And Luna just stared at Ryan beside her. She always felt like she was in a trance just now. This is about Ryan. But on the contrary, it was the excited clapping of tables and whistling of countless wizards in the auditorium. Great Hufflepuff. However, before he could finish his words, he rolled his eyes, convulsed and fell to the ground. The students around him stood up and stayed away from him. Gabriel Truman, Hufflepuff's prefect, and Professor Sprout, the head of the house, were about to stand up. It was made by a big sliding bat, Snape. He walked to Zacharias' side with a swift step that seemed to glide across the auditorium. Surprisingly, Snape actually used the amplification charm on himself. He stretched out his wand and pointed it at his throat, examined it for a moment and said, "I just fainted because I was too excited. Side effects of eating too much Matra mouse hyperplasia. It's a rare side effect. It's rare for someone to be so," Snape spat in disgust, "so excited. Obviously." Then he waved his wand and left the hall with him floating up. This surprised Harry a little. I began to wonder if Zacharias had offended Professor Snape during this period of confinement. In this way, Zacharias can almost be said to have lost the right to choose a spouse. In response, Ryan just kept his achievements and fame to himself. The other male students were not attracted by Zacharias' performance at all. Ron, who is next to Harry, is a good example of this. Ignoring the death glare coming from Lavender at the Gryffindor table next to him, Harry, like his good brother Ron, frankly explained to Ginny that he and Ron were not on the same group. Poor kid, he was just wondering if there was someone behind Zacharias' fainting. Now I have to explain it to my girlfriend. Ryan, who was also explaining to Luna, smiled evilly when he was in a trance. The Hogwarts professors on the stage all smiled awkwardly. Everyone was thankful that the distance to the room behind the table in Boxburton's was not long. Fire, the champion of Castrobishire, he cried, is Hufflepuffurvis. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.